You need to hit mute.
Okay, I have 7 o'clock my time. I'd like to call this meeting of the Municipal Council to order at 7 p.m. Mr. Withers, would you kindly take a roll call attendance beginning with Councilor Blair?
Mr. Blair.
Yeah.
Ms. DeSimone.
Here.
Mr. Conti.
Present.
Mr. Waterman.
Present.
Vice President Jackson. Vice President Jackson? She's here. I see her.
Here.
Mr. Delisio.
Present.
Mr. Kobus.
Here.
Ms. Dolan.
Here.
Ms. Reynolds.
You're muted, Sarah.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes, I'm here.
Ms. Holmes.
Present.
President Cooper.
Here.
Everyone is in attendance.
Thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 17th, 2020.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any questions or comments? We'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Kobus.
Yes.
Mr. Delisio.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Blair. Mr. Blair. Peter.
Here.
President Cooper.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. At this time, I'm going to recognize Councilor Holmes. As you all know, at our last full council meeting, there was a charter objection relative to the ordinance regarding building sewers and connections. And at this time, I will recognize Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. So I will be reading from the charter objection from December 15th, 2020. From the docket of April 7th, 2020, I entertain a motion to approve the changes to the ordinance 16-15 building sewer connections. Delete section 16-15.6 building sewers and connections in its entirety and replace with the following. Delete section 16-15.11 wastewater discharge permit application in its entirety and replace with the following. Delete section 16-15.12 wastewater discharge permit insurance process in its entirety and replace with the following. Delete section 16-15.13 reporting requirements in its entirety and replace with the following. Delete section 16-15.15 in its entirety and replace with the following, and delete section 16-16.2 in its entirety and replace with the following, and delete section 16-18.9 in its entirety and replace with the following.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Was that Councilor Jackson that seconded that motion?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Okay. Any questions? Well, actually, first I'm going to go first because I can. I'm going to relinquish to Councilor Jackson. If you would take the floor, and I will just make a few comments in my conversations with the mayor today.
Thank you, President Cooper. I will sit in your seat. Here I am.
Thank you. So I did speak to the mayor about this and several other things today. And I expressed again to him that I was not that I was not in favor of this ordinance, but I am not in favor of the way that it happened. at the beginning of the public health emergency. I believe she said the docket of April 7th. That was the very beginning of when we started to go to a hybrid meeting, and I was attending the meetings in person. We were all getting more used to Zoom, and I've heard from several individuals that one sent it in writing that they were not able to participate because they were not as familiar as they are today with the process. So I'm asking you to consider allowing this to come through this process again. If you were to, a yes vote would pass it, obviously. A no vote, it would fail, similar to the water fee increases that did not pass several weeks prior to this. So I will not support these fees at this time because, and simply because, I do not think at the beginning of this public health emergency, we were equipped to take on and present publicly such a big increase or change to what has been sort of the status quo for many years, right, wrong, or indifferent with regard to the ratepayer. Because I'm right with you, I don't think the ratepayers on the residential side should be absorbing the commercial side or the development side of things. I think that argument would have applied to the water rate, and I didn't hear that when we were talking about the water fee increases, and that motion didn't pass. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, President Cooper. Council Blair.
I echo Mark's comments. My reason for charter objecting last week was precisely that. I've been on the council for 21 years, as most of you know, and I wholeheartedly support when we have a public hearing. I think it's important that the public be able to comment and feel comfortable doing so. When this came out in April, I had trouble getting on, as some of my councilors had trouble, and we're still having problems now and then. So my main concern and my reason for charter objecting was so you could take another look at this vote before it becomes law, so to speak. I honestly believe that the people that want to voice an opinion did not have the opportunity. It might have been legal, and I'm not arguing that point, but I do not believe it was a proper public hearing. For that reason, of course, I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council DeSimone.
Thank you, Vice President Jackson. In all due respect, President Cooper, I'm completely voting the same way I voted last time. I appreciate your concerns about access and process. I think that was provided. I don't find this to be a naive or unsophisticated group of people. I think we are doing and have done a disservice to the ratepayer by having this linger for so long when there are substantial amounts involved, when they haven't raised rates in a significant amount of time, when the increases are completely based on covering labor to do the job. This is not an overreach. This is not unreasonable. I think it's absolutely appropriate and long overdue. And I think we owe more to the city as a whole, to the ratepayers. I think service has been adequate. And I'm absolutely going to vote the same way I voted last time. Thank you, Vice President Jackson.
President Cooper.
Council DeSimone, if I may, Kathleen, I appreciate your commitment to your vote. But I would, and your vote was consistent in the last one as well. You were in favor of the water rate. I looked at every one of them. So I appreciate that. But the case, so where I'm struggling a bit is that the case for the ratepayer wasn't made with such passion on the water side as it is to being today on the wastewater side. And I don't understand the difference. And thank you.
Thank you, President Cooper. Council Holmes, did you have your hand up?
No.
No. Councilor Dolan, Councilor Reynolds.
I did. Thank you, Kate. I had my hands up. I'm going to go along with Counselor Cooper and Counselor Blair. I'm voting no on this as well for many of the reasons they stated, and I just think the timing is way off.
Thank you. Council Waterman, I saw your hand up as well.
Yes, I have a question for President Cooper. If the vote goes no this time, will you be making an effort to open it up again for another public hearing and have another go at this?
So it's not up to me per se, but I have been in touch with the mayor on this several times, and he has committed to sending down the water fee schedule because that didn't pass, to go through another review. And I'm certain he would do the same. And when I spoke to him just today about it, that's what his plan would be.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? With none, we will have a vote. And I believe, Mr. Withers, we will start with Counselor Holmes.
Nope, Counselor Blair.
Oh, Counselor Blair. I thought we started with him first last time.
Mr. Blair,
No.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
No,
Vice President Jackson,
No.
Mr. Delicio,
No.
Mr. Cobus,
No.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
No,
Ms. Holmes. Ms. Holmes
Sorry, yes.
and President Cooper.
No,
4 yeas, 7 nays.
motion fails.
Mhm. I'm supposed to say that.
Oh, yeah, you're supposed to say that.
Motion fails. Now I relinquish the chair to you, President Cooper.
Thank you. At this time, sorry, we are going to go to the public hearings, and we are going to start with the continued public hearings, the continued joint public hearing. Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the notice? Wait, before you do that, Steve, we've got to bring this planning board in.
Okay.
Bless you. Bless you.
They said, bless you, my dear.
All right.
Hey, Sean.
Hello,
Hey, Paul.
Hi. Evening.
3, 4.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, good evening. So, Mr. Withers, just let the record reflect that the planning board joined the hearing, this meeting at 7:12. And would you kindly read the notice of tonight's continued public hearing?
Yes, it's a continued public hearing. Notice is hereby given that in accordance with Chapter 40A, Section 5 of Mass General Law, that a joint public hearing will be held by the Attleboro Municipal Council and Planning Board regarding a rezoning petition received by Atlantic Golf Centers regarding 754 Newport Avenue, also known as Assessor's Plat number 69 in lot number 26B, to change the zoning of the 39.21 acres to general business and general residence. A.
Thank you. For the record, I did, Jim Jones, I did ask the applicant to join to share the screen if it was necessary, if we had questions. So they may need to be brought in to share their screen if there are questions about the packet that we all received. And just a reminder that the applicant did send back to us and to the planning board some responses to some of the questions or concerns. I think you've all received that. So with that, I will see if there is anyone here to speak in favor that has not addressed the council or the planning board at the last meeting. Anyone in favor, now is the time.
President Cooper, Lori Sawyer of 136 Curtis Ave would like to address the council.
Great, thank you.
And give me a second, please.
Sure will do.
Okay, Lori has been unmuted.
Hi,
Okay.
Jim, actually, that was incorrect. I'm against the zoning change, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
in the wrong place here.
Sorry about that.
So we'll bring Laurie back in to speak in opposition when we get there. Sorry about that. Was there anyone to speak in favor?
Not who has expressed interest.
Okay. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Now's the time to let us know. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition?
Well, I guess I'm in the right place now.
Yes, you are.
So, yeah, I'm in opposition of the zoning change to put the, especially if it goes to that Texas properties of Anthony properties. I believe it will lessen the quality of life in that area. There is over 500, 600 additional cars there. Already impossible to drive up Route 1 and Route 1A, especially during the holidays. It'd be an undrivable area. And I think that's really something that we shouldn't have. We should have it available to drive through. An eyesore for everyone around it and driving through 3 to 4 story buildings that are going to be really not something that people want to be seeing in their neighborhoods. And I think that the wetlands, it's not far enough away. I remember hearing them saying that they're going to be right at 25 feet, which is still too close. And if they're that close and able to be that close, where will they decide to encroach into wetlands elsewhere in the city? There are some that we need to, and it would take a precedence that they can do it elsewhere. I also think they can't really promise that they are not going to have children in 2-bedroom apartments. The schools are already overfull. And so these are my reasonings why I think that we need more affordable housing, need more single family homes. And so I don't think that it's going to be the best use of that land. Thank you.
We have lost the sound.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Sorry about that. Laurie, thank you for joining. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition?
There is nobody who has expressed interest.
Okay, is there anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Chairman, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
And Mr. Denisi, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
No, I don't.
This continued public hearing, joint public hearing is closed. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh.
Hi, Jim.
Hello? I don't know.
Can you see it or hear it?
I just needed to, oh, the mayor's joining now to talk about the next public hearing. Steve, you can read the notice of the next public hearing, and then Jim, when you see the mayor come on, if you could bring him in, that would be fine.
Will do.
Thank
Okay.
you.
This is a public hearing regarding the amendments to 10-4.18, 10-4.18 of the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro, permanent speed humps / speed cushions.
Thank you. I know the mayor is joining, and we'll just give him another minute or so to do so. I don't believe there's anyone else. Jim, did anybody else express interest in speaking about this public hearing this evening?
Not as of yet.
Okay, so we'll give the mayor a minute or so to join.
Never got to say Happy New Year to everybody. So Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah.
You too, Kate.
Thank you, Kate.
Here we go.
Here he is.
Hey, guys.
Here we go. Hi. Good evening, Mayor.
Hey, Mark. How you doing, Mr. President?
I'm well. So, Mayor, the floor is yours to talk about speed humps and cushions.
Okay, very good.
We've already read the notice, so you're good to go.
Okay,
Floor is yours.
very good. So I'm actually going to pull up an email really quick because Kyle Hagney, I recently asked Kyle, the police chief, what the difference was between a speed bump, speed hump, and speed table. I think we all know what a speed bump is, and they're probably about this wide, maybe 18 inches, 24 inches wide, 4 inches high, and you find those in parking lots. But I was unsure about the difference between a speed hump and a speed table. So I got that email, so I'll get into that. But let me first start off by saying we have a temporary speed hump ordinance in the city. And what that allows the police chief to do is to deploy the speed humps anywhere in the city almost anywhere. There's can't be on a major throughway or places where the speed limit's in excess of, I think, 30 miles per hour. But it allows the police chief to basically use a traffic calming measure between April and October. We've deployed these in numerous places with success. They slow traffic down. We know that. The data shows that. In some occasions, in some places, it actually deters people from using that cut-through street. So part of the problem is that the police can only deploy these between April and October. So speeding starts up again after these go away. And so what we'd like to do is have a permanent speed hump ordinance in the city. Now, the first thing I want to mention is that if you were to approve this, and I've said this to you in several emails before, if the council were to approve this, it doesn't mean that the mayor and the police chief and DPW, we can just start popping up speed humps anywhere we want in the city. Every single time we want to put up a speed hump as a traffic calming measure, the council has to approve each one. This is what you have before you is just enabling legislation. It allows us to actually have the conversation, because without this, there's no point in even having a conversation about it. So what I've submitted to you basically says, I took the temporary speed hump language and I just tweaked it ever so slightly to say, let's have permanent ones. And the process that I would use or any mayor can, and I think should use, and you, the council, can make sure this process happens, without even being in writing. It would work like this. If somebody comes to me, or one of you, and says, we have a problem with speeding or people using my street as a cut through. And I'll give you two good examples. We have May Street right around the corner from where I live. And then we also have Claflin Street down off of North Main Street. Both of those are used as cut throughs. People speed on them. And so those are ideal locations for a permanent speed hump. So, and just to be clear too, a speed hump is something that a plow can go up and over nice and smoothly, whereas a speed bump would get slammed into by a plow. So the speed bump is something you find in a parking lot. A speed a speed hump is something that's the width of a crosswalk, but elevated about 4 inches, and it forces cars to slow down. So there's a big difference between a speed bump and a speed hump. And the difference between a speed table and a speed hump is, as Kyle said, a speed hump is for 30 miles or lower, and a speed table is for 40 miles per hour and lower. A speed bump is for 15 miles per hour. So it's all about the speed. But in terms of construction, a speed table and a speed hump are basically the same thing. But we're talking about speed humps here for 30 miles or less. The process would look like this. A resident, a constituent, would come to you or come to me, and they would say, we have a problem with speeding or cut through on my street. And we would say, okay, we have a couple options. You know, maybe we can get more police presence there. Maybe we can have better signage. But let's just say all that has been tried and it doesn't work. We still have a problem. So let's go ahead and maybe put a speed hump on the road. And actually, ideally, you have 3 of them, 1, 2, 3, spaced out apart from each other. So the resident comes to me, or you. But then the next thing we do is we start with the data. We then ask everybody else on the street, how do you feel about a permanent speed hump? And if people say, yeah, speeding is a problem, people using our street as a problem, we then say, okay, let's deploy the temporary ones. So before we do that, we get some data, and you, the council, have approved the purchase of a traffic counter. The police department has that. The police department can then deploy the traffic counter, get what the average speed is right now and the range of speeds, and how many cars are going by on a regular basis over several weeks period of time. Once they have that pre-test data, they then put down the temporary speed humps, and then they get the post-test. Now, what did the temporary speed humps do? Did they slow down cars? They always do. Did they decrease the number of cars using as a cut through? They usually do. So then we take that data and we go back to the residents and we say, hey, residents, you asked for speed humps. We took some data. Now it worked, it slowed cars down. Do you want to see these here on a permanent basis now? And we ask, we poll all the residents. If they say yes, that's when I go to you, the council, and say, hey, council, here's the residents asked for it. We took some pre-test data, we put the speed humps down. Now we got some post-test data, we showed it worked. And now the people said, even after they've been inconvenienced with having these on their street, they still want them. So I then go to you, the council, and say, police chief supports this. I support it. Now, do you, the council, support this? And the council at this point, does a public hearing. They take, people come in, they speak in favor or opposed to it. And ultimately, you guys, the council, vote on it. And then once you vote yes, that's when we go to DPW, and DPW constructs permanent speed humps, which again are basically from curb to curb, and they are the size of basically a crosswalk. They're just as wide, maybe 10 feet and across, and then curb to curb all the way, from one side. But then you have like little gutters so the water can continue to flow through. But the permanent speed humps, though, you would probably get better results than the temporary ones, because as you know, the temporary ones, people can sometimes kind of maneuver through them a little bit. You can't do that on the permanent ones. So it takes about 9 steps. So from the start, it starts with the people asking for this, then we see if all of the people in the area are in favor of this, or at least a majority of them. Then we take the data, get the pre-test data, put down the temporary, get the post-test, what did it slow it down? And then we ask the people again, do you want these here on a permanent basis? If they say yes, we go to you, the council, you hold your public hearing, and then, either you guys vote yes or no, and then we go ahead and construct them. So, none of that is part of the ordinance, but I would say this: if we don't do any part of that, if the police chief doesn't support where I want to put a speed hump down, guess what? You guys are probably going to vote it down. if the data doesn't support it, you guys are probably going to vote it down. If the people don't support it, you're probably going to vote it down. So if any one of those pieces that I just described, even though it's not as part of the ordinance, because this doesn't need to be part of it shouldn't be part of the ordinance. If any one of those pieces are missing, you, the council, can just vote it down. And again, you have the final say on whether or not these get put up or not. As far as the timing goes, now people might say, oh my gosh, the mayor and the city council are going to start putting these things up all over a city. Well, from start to finish, it takes about 3 months to do one of those little experiments, if you will. From the time somebody says, can you put up the temporary speed humps? Maybe we can get permanent after that. From the time it takes to put that up, to collect the data and send it to the council, it takes about 3 months. Considering that the window of opportunity is only between April and October, we could probably only do 2 streets per year anyway, because we have to redeploy those temporary speed humps. So if anybody's concerned about, oh my gosh, there's going to be speed humps popping up all over the place, probably only 2 streets a year. And in the ordinance doesn't allow them to be on Pleasant Street or North Main Street or County Street. It's intended for cut through streets, and streets that are, I think, 30 miles per hour or lower. Maybe it's 30 or 35. I forgot exactly what it was. But all the stars have to line up for this to happen, because it is a permanent roadway alteration, and DPW would be the ones to finally construct these, and they would construct them in a way that, the plows can go up them and over them nice and smoothly, and that way they get to stay there year round. I actually, at 600 North Main Street in Providence last winter, their DPW, for some strange reason, left their temporary speed humps up when the plows came by, and I saw what happened to the temporaries. They got destroyed. So there's a good reason we don't use the temporary speed humps year round. They just, they don't work well with plows, but permanent ones, and these have been done in other places too. So I'm happy to take any questions about this. Like I said, the process from A to Z, if any piece of that is missing, you guys just vote it down, because you guys get the final say. I guess, you have questions, so feel free.
Any questions for the mayor? Councilor DeSimone, then Blair, then Conti.
Thank you, President Cooper. Thank you, Mayor. I just have one or two questions. You said you anticipate maybe 2 a year. I'm just wondering, what's the cost? And what is the cost to put one of these up, do you anticipate?
I think it's around $2,000 each, because it's basically just asphalt. It's just raised asphalt, the width of a like I said, a crosswalk, curb to curb, with a little bit on the edges. It's not entirely touching the curb. That way water can continue to flow. But it's very inexpensive. This, the police chief is 100% on board with this. It's if there's a better way to do things, we would be pursuing that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Blair.
You're on mute.
You're muted, Pete.
Excuse me, I was muted. Just a quick one, Mr. Mayor. You did say this is going to require a public hearing, correct?
Yes. Yeah, every single time. So this right now, this public hearing is just to allow us to have this enabling legislation. But every single time a permanent speed hump is sought, the council approves each and every one of those. The mayor's administration, the administration doesn't have the authority to do a permanent roadway alteration. The council has the authority to do that. The mayor doesn't have the authority to do that. So every single time a speed hump would be sought, and actually they're done in threes, 1, 2, 3 is ideal. Within a short period of time, so a short distance, I should say. Every single time we'd want to put those down, the council would have to approve it. So we can't, the mayor and the police chief and DPW, we can't just go around the city and pop these up whenever we feel like it. We can do that with the temporary ones, but not permanent ones. And so every single time you guys would be required to vote on that permanent alteration to the roadway.
Mark, may I just make another comment?
Absolutely. And then Jackson, and then, Conti, Jackson, and then Holmes. Go ahead, Peter.
Oh, for some reason, his audio is not coming through to me.
Peter, your audio, something's wrong with your audio.
An application tomorrow.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, what was that, Peter? I'm sorry, Mr. Blade. What was that? I didn't quite catch
What
it.
if you got an application tomorrow or somebody
Mhm.
approach you, and I'm sure somebody already has. I'm just saying, how soon would you put this in motion so that we would get a public hearing?
Okay, so if I got an application tomorrow, the first thing I have to say is we have to wait until April. Well, because that's when we can deploy the temporary ones. But let's just say it's April 1st and we can put the temporary ones up.
Okay.
Now, yeah, so it's April 1st and somebody says to me on March 30th, hey, I want to, put up a permanent speed hump. And I say, okay, let me talk to the police chief. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start the process. So the police chief, over the next couple of days, at some point, the police chief gets to put down the speed counter and the traffic counter. So I'm sorry, I missed one of my own steps. The first step I do is the person comes to me, the next step is contact everybody else in that immediate area on both sides of the street and say, hey, one of your neighbors has asked for permanent, speed humps. How do you feel about it? I'd like to know what the rest of the street feels, because one person, might be at odds with the majority of the street. But if a majority of the people come back and say, yeah, speeding is a problem here and I'd be willing to try the speed humps, I say, okay, so that takes about probably 2 weeks to get the, to results of that come in. So then if the results come back, I'd ask the police chief to put up the speed counter and the traffic counter and run that. He'd probably run it for about 2 weeks to get 2 weeks worth of data. So now we're at the end of April. So now this police chief deploys the temporary speed humps. We count the data again for 2 weeks, because now we had the data first without the speed humps. Now we have the data with the speed humps, and did that slow down traffic? So we collect that for 2 weeks. Then I present that so now we're in the middle of May. And then I present that to the neighbors and I say, hey, you've had these here for about 2 weeks now, maybe 3 weeks. We have the data. The data shows that it reduced speeding, usually by 4 or 5 miles per hour, 3, 4, 5 miles per hour, sometimes 6. It depends on the road, but it slows it down. Do you want to see these here on a permanent basis? So I asked them that in probably middle of May 20th or so, and then they respond to me over the course of 2 weeks. Nobody responds right away. They trickle in over 2 weeks. Now we're at the beginning of June. And then I get the results from that. And I say, okay, you know what? 75% of the people on the street want to have these permanent speed humps. That's when I go to you, the council, and I say, hey, council, can we I send a communication to the council at the beginning of June. So we're 2 months from the start now. And, I say, hey, council, can we have permanent speed humps in this location? And that's when you start your process. It goes to, a committee. It'll probably go to the traffic study committee, which then should move it out pretty quickly. Then it would go to the council, and then it goes to the committee. You guys voted out of committee. You voted out of the general council. You have your hearings. So that's why I would say a minimum of 3 months from start to finish to get these in place. And hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The thing that I was most interested in, I'm not overly happy about these Zoom public hearings. And hopefully, as you say, this goes out to June or July, say, for a public hearing. I pray to God we're in a better shape then as far as public hearings are concerned, because I honestly still feel that this type of public hearing doesn't really justify a proper public hearing.
That's a fair point. And if the rest of the council is, or majority of the council is in agreement with you, you basically sit on it until you're ready to have a real public hearing, like where you have people in front of you. But the part of the process would be, I'm communicating with everybody on the street, and all of you can do that as well. But we're communicating with people on the street, and basically when it comes time for the public hearing, we can say, we've done the experiment, we put the temporary ones down, we got the data, we want to move forward. You can go on Zoom and speak in opposition, or for it or against it, or neither, if you would like. So people would still be alerted, but it's not going to. I'm not going to, and I don't think any mayor would want to put it before the council if the majority of people on that street, and directly, you think of May Street, for example, which is just a quarter mile away, or Claflin Street, if you poll all the people on the street and the majority of them are opposed to something, it would be really hard for any mayor to say, well, you know, I'm still going to do it anyway. You know, it would be hard for a council to vote that through, knowing that the majority of people are going to oppose it, you know, because this is their neighborhood. That's my, like I said, you guys, the council, can always sit on it and wait and vote it down if you wanted to. I mean, you guys get the final word.
You will, I'm sure you will give us a count of the people on the street. If you're
Oh, yeah.
gonna-
Yeah,
if
actually,
you're gonna-
yeah, with, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I've surveyed May Street once before, and I asked several questions about if they want, this is an interesting one. I asked them if they wanted speed humps, and I also asked them if they want sidewalks or a sidewalk on one side of the street. I collected that data, and I think I turned it over to Heather Parika. I made copies of it for her, but I surveyed, there was maybe about less than 20 homes on the street, on May Street. And I think almost every single person responded to me, and I think I might still have that somewhere in my office. I would probably just do it over again, you know, because now that they've lived with the temporary ones for a very brief time, I think it was in the summer of 2019. And let me be clear about something. This is going to sound funny. I hate speed humps. I do. Whenever I went over May Street, I hated those things. I really did. But you know what? That means they work. Okay. And that's the point. You know, they are supposed to slow you down. You're supposed to hate them. You know, that's the whole point of it. But, you know, I would survey May Street again, or Avenue, and you know, and again, let's just say for the sake of argument, I say, yeah, I surveyed the street 99%, or any mayor says this. I surveyed the street, 99% of the people want them. You know, they want the speed humps. And then you guys, the council, say to me or any mayor, can we see that data? And I say, or a mayor says no, well then fine, you guys vote it down. I mean, first of all, it's public record. You guys would have to, you know, you'd have to, you know, be given that data.
I appreciate you coming down, and this is what needs to be done more often. So there's a lot of transparency, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, well, any other questions?
Thank you. I think Council Conti, you're up.
Well, Council DeSimone asked my question, so I'm all set, Mr. President.
Oh, thank you. Council Waterman, did you have a question?
I'm all set.
Oh, Holmes, I'm sorry.
Diana, you're on mute still.
Don't forget
And
me.
Delicio, and then Jackson.
Thank you. I have a few questions. So there was a concern last time this came through with the traffic committee, traffic study. What are their thoughts on this?
You know, I don't know, but I know there was a lot of interference on traffic study in the past. Things were not going smoothly. You know, this, like, I don't remember what their objection was. I think it was something to the effect of Jack Jacoby, if I remember right, had inserted some language that the Traffic Study Commission came back, and I don't actually remember. I mean, for whatever reason, it fell apart. And I mean, you know, Jack, and that's not throwing Jack under the bus. Jack is a great guy, and you know, but he inserted some language, or he suggested some language, and it derailed it. And for whatever reason that the council voted it down. I don't remember what happened. You know, but there's, you know, we got to remember though that the Traffic Study Commission is an advisory board. You know, they look at different issues. But if somebody is presenting, like if an administration is presenting data that says that it shows that the people of the street want this, and there's a public hearing for it, you know, how much, if the police chief is in support of it in this particular location we're talking about, whichever one that may be, I don't know why, if you know, the mayor supports it, the people support it, and the you know, the police chief support it. If all the stars are lined up, I don't know what the relevancy of the Traffic Study Commission's advice would be if it were contrary. You know, that's just my opinion, though.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, I mean, I think what I recall from it was that they said that it wasn't a good solution to speeding. That was what I recall the data showed. But I wanted to ask about, in the last 2 years.
Can I comment on that though? if they would argue that it's not a good solution, they're at odds with the police chief, who is the city's expert on traffic issues. And they're also at odds with the data that's produced by, anywhere that we have, speed humps up, not just in Attleboro, but anywhere. Speed humps slow down people. They absolutely do work. I mean, there's no question about that. So if that was their opinion, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts, and the facts would speak otherwise.
I think I just want to interject right there. I want to just say that it's my recollection that the reason for the hesitation of the board was relative to the speed, no pun intended, at which the council was asked to approve this citywide, right? And Jack's suggestion was what was ultimately passed by this council, which was permanent speed humps around a municipal building, i.e. the school.
That's what it was.
You all remember that the impetus for this was because of the rotary and the changes to the traffic flow on Rathbun Willard Drive. That's what initially started some of this conversation, and it needed to happen quickly because they were designing the road and the layout and whatnot. So we came to a compromise to land the plane at permanent speed humps within X distance of a municipal building or a school. I forget exactly the way it's worded, but and that's what we have on the books today, and what the mayor is suggesting through this ordinance. And I don't mean to speak for you, Mayor, but is that we add these other layers and remove the only around a municipal building or school.
Yes, that's correct. One of the first things that Kyle had mentioned to me when I came on board as mayor was, speeding is a big issue. I'm sure all of you hear it too, but this was one of the first things he talked to me about. It was, they work. I mean, they work, and they're only intended for cut through streets, or that you can't put them on main roads like Pleasant Street, North Main, South Main County. It's not meant for places like that. Maple Street, it's not meant for places like Maple Street or Bishop Street. That's just not where and again, you, the council, have the final approval on whether or not these would be erected or not.
Okay, so in the last 2 years, what streets have had the temporary speed humps?
The only two I can think of off the top of my head is May Street and Claflin Street. We took data on both of those, and the data supported that it did reduce speeding. I would ask you could connect with the police chief, because he might have put them in a couple other places. Those are the only two places I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe somebody else knows of another place in the city that I can't think of off the top of my head, but I'm sure the chief would have better memory of that than me.
Okay, so those two streets seem to be ones in the city that we're looking at targeting. And are there any other streets that come to mind for permanent speed humps?
Rathbun Willard Drive is another one, but we already have the ordinance in place that we could put one there if the council votes on that. That's another. It really is, other people have asked me for speed humps in other places. I'm trying to think of, I know I have an email. I emailed myself once a list of the places, different streets. There was only a handful. I don't remember exactly what they were, but this is something that is a tool we can use to respond to constituents when they have concerns about speeding. So it's sort of something we use as needed. And if, for the sake of argument, a bunch of neighbors get together and say, hey, you know what, we've had these things here for a couple of years, we're sick of them. Well, it's just asphalt on top. We can just remove them too. It's not a horrible, it's not a big lift. But off the top of my head, I wish I wasn't blanking on that. I wish I was better prepared to tell you what those were. But the other people have asked for them. Slater Street. Slater Street is one that people have said is a horrible speedway. It's a speed zone. And, there's Kyle has said, the police chief has said that qualifies as a cut through. Now, I saw Councilor Jackson's head shake no. And so let's just say, if I did a poll of some citizens and they said, yes, we'd like to have them there, but you, the council, get the final say. You get to say whether or not you're going to ultimately have them there. But that's, this is a tool we have, and all the stars have to line up. You know, the data has to support it. The citizens have to support it. The chief has to support it. I would have to support it. And if all those stars lined up and you guys want to vote yes, you can vote yes. Or if you want to vote no, you vote no.
Thank you. Councilor Delicio, I believe, was next, then Jackson, then Reynolds.
Actually, I'll surrender the floor to Vice President Jackson, as I believe she was before me.
Okay. You're muted, Kate.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Nice to see you this evening. Couple of things.
Yes.
Because you're the only one here that's to speak in favor, I think. I'm not sure. We haven't gotten past you yet, but was the chief of police notified about this evening? Because I know you keep referencing all of the things that he says. And I'm thinking about Judge Judy, and Judge Judy would never let you do that, refer to somebody else unless they're actually in the building.
Yeah, you know, actually, I just learned about this hearing, what, Mark, 4:30? I think that's when you told me about it, Mark. And so, just so no, I mean, but I would certainly encourage you to continue this, to bring the chief in. This is not my idea. This is the chief's idea. This is the chief's recommendation to use as a traffic calming measure. You know, but don't take my word for it. Ask him, get him in here to tell you, to answer.
Thank you. And I know, I just remember him speaking to us before, and he's always said, like, his favorite thing about slowing people down is potholes, you know, but I'm sure he's part of the whole hump thing too. You know, but yes, I'd like to hear what he has to say as well. And when you just mentioned Slater Street, because it's my ward, and I'm up and down there constantly. Yes, it's a speedway. It's a lot of trucks. Like, I wish it was not a truck through, but it is, and there's nothing we can do about that. Actually, and I did also hear you mention something about May Street and the speed humps that were over there as well. But we can't actually offer anybody sidewalks without actually doing an investigation on land and what we own on each side of the street. So we really don't know when we say to people, like, when people ask us about sidewalks, it's like, you know what, it goes into this big, long, you know, you have to go in a year ahead of time and find out what we own and what we don't own and what would cost us to go on that way, just to be fair and clear about that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. You actually made a couple of good points I didn't even think to mention. Going to the most recent one, the sidewalks, Mike Tyler at DPW have already tasked him with doing a surveying of May Street to find out if it's even possible for us to put sidewalks on one side of the road. It may not even be possible for the reasons you just mentioned. The other one, actually, Slater Street is one of them, and you mentioned the trucks going down there, but I thought of another one, and Mark, this is one of your constituents. It's on Rocklawn Ave. Now, my father has a house, my sister lives on Rocklawn Ave, and that's also used as a cut through. Now, if we're not allowed, you know, it's really tough to make something a no-through trucking street. However, we can make it very unappealing. And that's another thing. Speed humps not only slow vehicles down, but if we had speed humps on Slater Street or on Rocklawn Ave, that's going to make it very unattractive for 18-wheelers to go over, because now they have to slow down, bounce over these things, slow down again, bounce over another one, slow down again, bounce over another one, because ideally they're put in sets of 3, even though the temporaries are in sets of 2. So it's another tool to not only slow traffic down, but to decrease the amount of vehicles going over it. Because if you make it very unattractive, you know, I hate going over these things. I do. You know, we all do. We all hate these things. But
of course we do. And if I may follow up, Mr. President, so I know, Mr. Mayor, you had mentioned, like, when the council, if they were to approve it and we go in and you're going to present it to the neighbors and then you're going to ask the neighbors. But you know what? I would rather see or know that for a fact that we're doing the same thing, like pretty similar to what National Grid does. So when I ask for a street light, like right now I've been waiting for one on Steer Street on the bad corner. It's 2 years. It'll be 2 years the first week of February. Still have nothing, no report, nothing. But they actually send a letter. So Superintendent Tyler sends a letter out to all the abutters, and that's what I would like to see. All the abutters get a letter, so we have everything in writing. If anyone objects to a light that's being presented on their street, which I would like to have the same thing happen if you're going to put a speed hump. I want it in writing. Someone objects, we go out, and if someone objects, we say no.
Yeah.
But what would they do with a light? If the light is on a pole that's too close to their home, it's going to cause too much distraction, then yes, we simply say no, cut off and done. And I would like to know that we're going to do something very similar and very strategic and authorized, very similar to that. That's what I would like to see done if this is passed.
Yeah, so if, as part of my process, one person comes to me or you, and then the first thing I do is survey everybody on the street. That's the writing, you ask, I send them a letter, ask them to write back to me. And then we put then we find out if they want them, then we put the speed humps down, but then we ask them again, you experienced the temporary ones, now do you want these here permanently? Because maybe their opinion changed. And then, so I have this data, the pretest, their opinion first, and then we have the data first. We put the speed humps down, we get the data, and then we get their opinion. That's 4 data points. And if I then am petitioning the city council, or any mayor is, and the mayor doesn't supply the council with that information, well, guess what? Vote it down. So you're absolutely right that, it would behoove the mayor to present that information up front, all those 4 different data points. And it would also, if the mayor doesn't present that, and again, this would be something beyond me, well, then you guys have the option to just vote it down and until you get the data that you're looking for. I would be worried though, and this is something that, reasonable people can disagree. If one person out of, let's just say 20 says, no, I don't want speed humps, but the other 19 people say yes, this is a decision for you, the council, to make on your own. That's not my decision. I don't get a vote. But do you want to have one person have veto power over the quality of life of over the 19 people? That's a decision you'll have to wrestle with when you come across that. I don't know what the answer is. That, is it one person? Is it 2 people out of 20? Is it, that's up to you guys to decide. That's your vote. There's 11 of you.
Thank you.
Councilor Delicio.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming down. A lot of my questions weren't answered tonight, but we talked about they're permanent, but they're asphalt, correct?
Yes, that's right.
So if there's a road repair that needs to be tended to, if there's a water main break, we're going to have to tear them up and then place them over again?
Yeah, exactly. No different from what we do right now. That's right. In fact, the corner of May Street and Newport Ave has a patch on it because there was a water leak there earlier today. But yeah, no different. It's that's standard. Anytime there's a water leak or there's a gas leak or something, the road gets ripped up, and it would be ripping through an extra 4 inches of asphalt. They're not a terribly sophisticated technology. It's very basic.
Sure. No, my bigger point was that if that happens, we need to tear them up, then reconstruct them. Correct?
Yeah, it's every project is slightly different. I would defer to DPW or water or wastewater. They're the ones that do the tearing up. Is it going to be a horribly expensive proposition every time there's a water main break? Probably not. Another thing we can do is we can also look to see which, let's just say for the sake, let's just pretend that we're going to put these on Rocklawn Ave. Okay, and you, the council, have approved putting these on Rocklawn Ave, or I go to you, and you actually, Jay, you just gave me something to think about that I hadn't thought about before. Now, before you guys give the council, before you give your authorization to put these down, before you make your vote, you say, Mayor, have you connected with Columbia Gas, water, wastewater, about the utilities in the road? What's the condition? Does Rocklawn Ave, you want to put these on Rocklawn Ave, but is Rocklawn Ave like Bishop Street or Steer Street, where you're constantly having water main breaks? And if I come back and say, I don't know, then you say, we're not voting on this until you find out. So maybe that's another layer I hadn't thought of before. So it's a really good point. I then check, or whoever the mayor is, they check with Columbia Gas, actually DPW would do that for the mayor, but water department, wastewater department, and find out the condition of those water mains. And if they are a place that, because we can actually send a camera in and look at like the wastewater and to find out like what the condition of that is and to see what the condition of the water is. Maybe that, if it's a regular problem spot, then we don't do it. So on Steer Street, as you probably heard, the entire street is ripped up right now. We're putting down new water mains curb to curb. And if the residents of Steer Street wanted these speed humps, these permanent speed humps, I could say to you with a very high confidence that we're not going to have any problems with the water mains on Steer Street. I don't think it has wastewater, so I don't think you have to worry about that. So that would, that's something we can navigate on each case, on a case-by-case basis. But that's actually, I hadn't even thought of that. That's a really good point.
No, thank you for that answer. It's just something that kind of popped up as we were talking. The last question, if I may, President Cooper, is what sort of a recall provision, if you would, is in here should, the neighbors have the temporary humps, they go through these the steps, and then, 3, 4, 5 years from now, they feel that they don't need it. Maybe the neighborhood turns over.
Yeah, it's, okay, so the same process could be done in reverse. It's an alteration to the roadway. The residents come to the mayor. The mayor, just to say a couple of people on the street come to the mayor, they get sick of them, and then the mayor surveys the rest of the residents. And actually, the council members could do the same thing. The council members could also do the same thing with a surveying of the residents. And then we present that to the council because it's an alteration to the roadway. And then the council would have to vote and do your whole process that you normally do. Then you'd have to vote to remove these because it's an alteration. The mayor wouldn't have the authority to just unilaterally go in and remove I don't believe the mayor has the authority to just go in and remove a permanent speed hump because that is an alteration to the roadway that the council has approved. I don't have the authority, or the mayor doesn't have the authority to just make an alteration to the roadway without the council's approval. If you approved it in the first place, and then that's what it is, that's what you have approved. You did not approve it to be flat again. That would probably require another hearing. And it would probably require also either the council member or the mayor to go and get the feedback from the residents, all of the abutters.
Thank you. Council Reynolds and then DeSimone.
Thank you, President Cooper. So I'm just going to kind of be brief. I've been listening to all of this, and honestly, I don't even know why this is something we're sticking our nose into and changing up what we already have on the books. In my opinion, it has always been the chief's decision to decide about traffic patterns and what needs what. And I don't understand why we are adding all these layers of additional work and public hearings when the chief would quite frankly know whether it needs it or doesn't need it. I do not know why we are adding all of this. And at this point, I would say no to all of it, quite frankly.
So let me answer that. So the reason that we have to go through this is because the chief doesn't have the authority to make a permanent alteration to the roadway. Only the council can do that. So that's the council's own rules have stipulated that.
May I just interrupt for 1 second? So to then satisfy that, if someone came forward, then the chief makes the decision, comes to us, and we follow his decision or not. We don't do all this other background leading up to. The chief gets the information. He says to us yes or no. We bring it forward and we agree or disagree if it's our decision. And it knocks out 8 or 9 weeks of stuff that the chief is already familiar with.
Well, the process, the chief agrees with this process because it doesn't leave the alteration of a neighborhood, of a roadway in a permanent way without actually consulting with the people who live there. The people who live there really should have a say in this as well. And that's why, if the chief is on board, the people are on board, the mayor's on board, having all those signs, I mean, I would say, and actually, you know, it doesn't, what this ordinance does, it doesn't actually detail these steps I've identified. The steps I've identified are my policy, you know, that's, you know, and another mayor might have a different policy. I've put these in as a, you know, you guys, the council still gets the final say. And so if you know, Sarah, if Ms. Reynolds, your standard is just, you know, does the chief approve of this? Yes, good, you got my vote. If that's all yours is, that's great. But other councilors, and certainly the residents, they might say, well, I want more information than just the chief's opinion. You know, Councilor DeSimone, she had submitted a draft of the ordinance to me. She amended it, and she said, what do you think of this? And it actually it put in, it codified all of the steps that I've talked about with you tonight. And I went back to her, I said, look, I agree with everything you're saying here, but there's one problem with it. The council can't tell the mayor how to do the job. And she liked all of those steps. And I think most of you probably like all these steps too. You get the input of the people. Sarah, you're saying there's too many steps. But you know, all we're doing though, the ordinance itself, a lot of what I'm talking about is the process I would do. And, you know, but the ordinance, all this is just enabling legislation. It just allows us to petition the council for a permanent speed hump. The chief can't put a permanent speed hump down right now without your authorization. And the chief also can't put the temporary ones down between the months of October, I should say November and April, you know, for those 6 winter months. So I hear what you're saying. There's too many steps, but I would, you know, respectfully disagree. Just to say, I think that the input of the abutters is very important. Getting the pre-test data, the post-test data to support it, rather than just taking one person's word for it. But I can see that what you're saying. It's a very cumbersome process, you know, and you know, I think that's a good thing, though.
Before I recognize Councilor DeSimone, I think it's important to make note to Councilor Holmes to, when you have your committee meeting on this matter, to make sure that we invite the police chief and the DPW, Mike Tyler, or their designee to a committee meeting to answer the council's questions and make sure that we're all on the same page with what they think is an appropriate course of action for this. Councilor DeSimone, I think you were next, and then Councilor Jackson.
Yes, very briefly, Mr. Mayor, the mayor mentioned the fact that I did put together a proposed amendment, which some may like. Councilor Reynolds may not, because it's a lot more verbiage, but a lot of what we're discussing tonight is in there. So I appreciate the mayor mentioning that, and hopefully it's something we can consider further when this gets to committee. Thank you, President Cooper.
Councilor Jackson.
Thank you, President Cooper, but you already answered my question with regards to having the superintendent of public works and the chief of police coming to a committee meeting once we close this evening.
Great.
Yeah, I've spoken with the police chief, and you know, this is his idea. He supports these, and I'll be honest about it, you know, because you're going to hear from DPW. They're not crazy about these, because it does slow down. You know, the snow plow operation, like when a plow approaches it, you know, the plow has to slow down. But these are used in other places, and with DPW being the ones who can construct these, we're leaving it up to them to construct these in a way that allows for the plow to pass up it and over it nice and smoothly. You don't get that with a speed bump, as we all know. Speed bumps are those really sharp things in a parking lot, but the speed humps can be constructed. And so DPW will be able, we'll hear from them on that, but they'll be the ones constructing these in a way that allows their plows to go up and over them nice and easy.
So Mayor, I appreciate that around the snow removal, but as I shared with you, I'm going to share with the council. I was adamantly opposed to any type of speed humps, bumps, or lumps, right? You all remember me saying that. Till I went to the great state of Maine to pick up a snowmobile. And my GPS sent me down the wrong road. I zigged when I should have zagged. And guess what it had? Speed humps. In Maine, imagine that. They get some pretty hefty snow where I was picking up a snowmobile, and they seem to manage. And then I got to the guy's house, which happened to be the street before, and I said to the guy, hey, what about those humps, bumps, and lumps? And he said, you're not going to believe it. That like saved my marriage because the traffic on that street was so bad because everybody does what you did. They miss the light. The GPS sends them down the wrong road and they fly down the road to go up and take a left to come back to get to the street. It's like a square block. He said, it changed this entire neighborhood. And so I think I need to listen to the DPW superintendent, and I need to listen to the police chief's input, and I need to consider the Traffic Study Commission's input. But that changed my perspective on speed humps. In Maine, they get snow 6 feet high, 121 inches of snow. So they seem to get it off the speed humps all right where I was. So that does that. I'm not worried about that, but I am worried about the process a little bit, and we'll talk about that in committee. But I wanted to share that with you since it was brought up about snow. I thought that's the place that has a lot of it. So I think that's all the questions for the mayor at this time. I don't see anybody else. With any questions.
With Mark, President Cooper, with one respect to the process. So one of the things that when Kathleen gave me her amendment, it said, the mayor shall do this, shall do this, shall do this.
We don't have the amendment, right?
Point of order.
Yeah, we don't have the amendment.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, I think, that's okay because I think she disregarded that and she worked on something new. I would just, one way as a former legislator myself, and all of you are legislators, rather than telling the administration, because I'm not always going to be mayor, I'll be gone before you guys know it. Rather than telling the administration how to do their job, the way around that is to require the data or require a report on what were your findings after having done this, because then you're not actually saying,
Again, point of order.
Okay.
We're done.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
public hearing.
Okay, great.
Any other questions for the mayor about speed humps or cushions? Seeing none, Mayor, thank you very much. The committee may have additional questions for you. If they do, you'll get those through Councilor Holmes. And just so you know, certain Councilor Holmes will be inviting the police chief and the DPW superintendent, a highway superintendent, to an upcoming committee meeting. Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition?
President Cooper, Joe Caponegro is on the meeting. I haven't been able to establish whether he's for, against, or neither.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm just picking this up late. Members of the council, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I just, as a former member of and chairman of the Traffic Study Commission, this was brought up before us quite a few years ago. And at the time, there was the way the wording of the speed hump was worded in the proposal was contradictory to the true meaning of a speed hump. A speed hump is has a very regulated aspect of how much of a rise and how much of a distance and how much of a fall, depending on the speed zone it was in. And as presented, I'm going to go back maybe 3-4 years ago. It was more of a speed bump than a speed hump. So there has to be careful attention paid if you do go forward with this. And at the time, I remember the DPW was against it because of snow plowing purposes and tearing them up just because of the plows. But a speed hump is entirely different in its true definition. If you want to take a ride down, I think it's between exit 3 and 2 on Route 3A in Plymouth, there are speed humps. Speed humps clearly defined are a rise in a road at regulated distances, and I haven't, I can't remember off the top of my head the exact thing, but it's so that a car traveling at the speed that is listed has very little disturbance in going over it. So when you're traveling, you're not going to get jostled, you may say, would be the best way to put it. What was presented before the Traffic Study Commission, as I say, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I forget when I was still on it, was a closer range of the speed hump, as they call it then, but it was more like a speed bump. So particular attention should be paid towards the definition of how it's constructed in as far as where it's constructed. I just want to bring that forward because Traffic Study Commission back years ago, it was brought before us by a previous administration, or maybe it was Mayor Haru's administration, I forget, but we were against it for two purposes, because it wasn't truly as was written in the ordinance that was presented to us, or the qualifications, if I can word it that way, that was presented to us. It was more of a speed bump than a speed hump. And it also, the DPW at the time was against how was maybe how it was rent, or in general, just because it was going to be, how would I say, for snow plowing purposes, it wasn't the best aspect for them. And that's my comments.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions from Mr. Caponegro? Seeing none, thanks. Thanks again, Joe.
If I can just follow up, if it is considered, give careful consideration to the way it's constructed. It's not constructed to be, it's constructed to allow a vehicle at going by the proper posted speed limit to easily go over it without being jostled. Not that it controls traffic in the sense that it causes jolting or undue I'm searching for words, but in other words, it isn't supposed to be as a speed bump as we have in some areas, like down by the Home Depot. That's a speed bump. You got to really slow down, you get jostled and go over it. It's so that a vehicle traveling the corrected posted speed limit can easily go over it without any jostling or any undue impairment of the feel of the driving. Thank you very much, Councilor.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks,
Happy
Joe.
New Year.
Happy New Year to everybody and all, and stay safe.
Thanks. Councilor Cobus, did you have a question?
No, I was just waving. Thank you, Joe.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Cobus.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak neither for nor against? Anyone else to speak on this public hearing? Seeing none, Councilor Holmes, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
This public hearing is also closed. Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the notice of the third public hearing this evening?
Steve, you're muted.
All right, this is a public hearing regarding Nicholas Drive, length of 773.11 feet from STA 0+00 to STA 7+73.11 as a public way, and accept said way and any related drainage, water, or sewer facilities or easements, all as shown on a plan and profile entitled Acceptance Plan, Nicholas Drive, Attleboro, Mass, dated May 31st, 2019, prepared by Charles T. Camp, RLS, and John C. Spink, PE.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
President Cooper, Bob Catenacci of 487 Oak Hill Ave would like to address the council.
Thank you. Mr. Catanacci, it's all you. You're up. Bob, you're muted. Bob, can you hear us?
He currently has his microphone muted.
Yeah. Bob, you're on mute. I don't know if you can hear us, but we can't hear you. Give him another minute. Oh, now he's gone. Is he still there as an attendee, Jim?
No, he seemed to have dropped off.
Okay, we'll see if he comes back. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? So we're going to go to opposed and then we'll come back to in favor just to see if Bob comes back. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition?
Sean McNamara of 26 Peregrine Circle would like to speak against.
Okay. Mr. McNamara, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Council President, and thank you to everybody for your time. I would like to speak in opposition to this. The main reason is back when this development started in 2014, I was in a butter. My main concern was the stormwater drain system. Some of you may remember I came in a couple of years ago to address my concerns then. My concerns are the same. This stormwater drain system does not work the way it was designed by the engineer and signed off on by Horsley Witten. It never has. For 6 years, I have addressed this many, many times with the planning board to the point where I was actually appointed to the planning board because of this and other reasons. Every single time our neighborhood is addressed our concerns with this stormwater drain system and the fact that it does not drain out in the 72 hours it was promised by the engineer. We were told by the planning board and the city planner that it would be addressed when it was finished and they would not sign off on it if it did not function properly. Our neighborhood has continued to address it the entire time, providing written as well as picture evidence that it is not draining in anywhere close to 72 hours. Most of the time, it takes somewhere between 7 to 10 days to drain, and that's in the best of circumstances. Currently, the last rainstorm we had, there was flooding all over the place. Since we got out of the water ban in October, since the first weekend in November, consistently, every single day, that stormwater drain system between November and now has had at least 2 feet of water in it. This has been addressed multiple times by the planning board and with the city planner. It was ignored at when we voted to accept it. I'd love an explanation why. I don't know what else to do, so I'm here as a private citizen just to make the city council aware that this is going to be an issue that the city's going to have to fix, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Sean, did I hear you say that you expressed your concern when the planning board brought this to a vote?
Yes, I did. I brought I brought the engineers' statements to the planning board's attention. I brought the state's rules and regulations to the planning board's attention, as well as the city planner, and it was ignored.
So I just want to make sure I understand the word ignored, because I was on that board and I've been, is your definition of ignored maybe not what you wanted to hear, but was there zero response to your concern?
Well, let's put it this way, both. Like I said, the regulations in the state and what the engineer designed was this forebay would drain out within 72 hours. As I've illustrated several times to members of the planning board and the city planner, it's not even close. It does not function properly. And again, every time this was addressed throughout this process with this phase, the planning board and the city planner assured our neighborhood that if it did not function the way the engineer promised and the state requires, they would do something about it. And that did not happen when it was voted on. And everybody understands the regulations, and they just, in my opinion, they ignored them. And so I don't know what else to do, to be perfectly honest with you.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Mr. McNamara? Sean, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too. Jim, I see Bob Catenacci's name back on the panelist list. You can bring him in, and I know you brought him in to speak in favor, but maybe we should just keep going. Was there anybody else to speak, Jim, or was it just Bob and Sean?
There are others against.
Okay.
And there's one other person who has expressed interest to speak for the motion.
Okay.
Or,
okay. So
I don't know how you want to handle that.
Yeah, I think we'll just continue to do opposed, and then we'll go back to in favor, just to give everybody the opportunity to speak. So you can bring in the next person in opposition.
Okay. The next person will be James Lima of 55 Savina Drive. And just give me a second to bring him up. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Lima, thank you for joining.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Excellent. So thank you again for allowing me to chat here. So I live over at 55 Savina Drive, which is connected to Nicholas Drive. And I recognize that the 4 bays and the ponds of phase 1 have been accepted by the city. My concern is how that acceptance can happen as the stormwater is required by law to drain within the 72 hours. And as Mr. McNamara had noted earlier, I also have never seen that water drain within a 3-day period. And I raise this because we have an enormous retention pond that's in phase 2 behind Nicholas Drive and Mary Rocha Way, which is right next to Savina Drive. And I'm concerned that the established laws of the state requiring the drainage of the ponds within 72 hours wasn't observed. And when it comes time to accept phase 2, why should the taxpayers of Savina Drive or Mary Rocha believe the laws will be followed when it wasn't followed for phase 1?
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lima? I think we're going to probably have to have Gary come to a committee meeting, is my guess. Vice President Jackson.
Thank you, President Cooper. I was just going to save my comments till later because I do want to hear what everybody else has to say, because I do want to speak through you to Councillor Dolan, who is Ward 5, and Councillor Holmes, who's Ward 6, and a lot of this involves them. So if you don't mind, I can hold my comments till the end.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Any questions for Mr. Lima at this time? All right, thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition?
None at this time. We can go back to the 4.
Yep. So if you can bring in, if we can hear him, Mr. Catanacci, that'd be great.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I apologize earlier. My computer threw me off. I'm not quite sure what happened. Thank you for hearing me tonight. So Robert Catanacci, manager, 131 Pleasant Street, excuse me, LLC. That's the company that did the development over there on Nicholas Drive and Oak Hill Meadows Way as well. I'm calling tonight, or checking in tonight to support the acceptance of Nicholas Drive and Oak Hill Meadows Way as well. I'm going to keep my comments short tonight if I could, because I'm getting over some COVID. So, but I felt this is important enough for me to come before the board and speak. So my opinion on Nicholas Drive is I believe it would be a beautiful addition to the streets of Attleboro. The streets themselves and the pond areas, all of the infrastructure has been inspected by the Department of Public Works, the department head, and has all been given a thumbs up by the DPW. And also at the recent planning board meeting, they chose to accept it as well, and also to release all the funds on the ponds, as well as the streets and all other infrastructure.
Thanks.
I apologize.
No problem. Any questions for Mr. Catanacci? I see Council Conti's hand.
Mr. Catanacci, did you say that the bonds have been released?
Yes. The planning board released the final bonds on the street.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional, Council Jackson?
Thank you, President Cooper. Mr. Catanacci, hi, I'm Kate Jackson.
Hi, Kate, how are you?
For you. So Nicholas Way. And right down the street is Nicholas Ave. And then you have Oak Hill Meadows Ave. And right down the street is Meadow Street Trail. Like it's 5 and 6. So can you just remind me how the process goes when you actually name a, I know we can't do anything about it now, but we have so many streets that have named the same name, like Riverbank, River Drive, River blah, blah, blah. How did you start? How did that come about? Like, I can't, can you just remind me how that goes? Like you name a street and then who approves it for you?
Yes, thanks for that question. So when a street is named, it's typically named by the developer who's putting forth the street. This one, in this case, was named after my son, Nicholas. I know that there is another street down the street, which is Nichols. I don't believe it, and I believe it's a Nichols. I'm not sure if that's an Ave or a street. And we're across Nicholas Drive. I believe these streets are finally approved by the fire department, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not 100% sure on that, Kate.
Thanks. It just, the reason I was asking is I hear it a lot and I hear them get confused on where they're going, police and fire, because it sounds the same. And I wish they would really stop naming streets after each other. It has nothing to do with tonight's public hearing, but thank you for clarifying that for me because I'd forgotten how that worked. Thank you.
Well, you are welcome. And I actually didn't even know there was a Nicholas Drive until well into the process of where we are.
Yeah.
It was brought to my attention, but yeah, no, I appreciate the question.
Councilor DeSimone and then Dolan, I believe.
President Cooper, just a point of order. Is it appropriate to ask Mr. Catanacci what he, how he views the drainage issues that was raised by previous speakers? Is that a fair question at this point or not?
I think it is.
Mr. Catanacci, I don't know if you heard the other gentlemen address their concerns about the draining pools there not draining within the 72-hour period. Do you have any thoughts or comments on that?
Yes, I do, Council. Woman, and also, I'd like to say for the record that in my opinion, as a developer, the ponds are working perfectly and they're working showcase. So we have over there a system of 4 ponds. We have a 4-bay. We have a bioretention area. We have a detention pond, and we also have an infiltration pond. So, and these ponds seem to be working fine. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
I don't know what
At the end of the day, these ponds have been working fine. I would say that Mr. McNamara nor Mr. Lima, neither one of them are engineers, and I don't really think that they are actually looking at the facts as they should be. These ponds have been around for the last 5-6 years. They've never overflowed, they've never failed, they've never been compromised. And if you recall back in 2014, 2015, forgive me, I don't know the exact date, when we had record, 48 out of the 50 states had record rainfall. I believe my ponds were one of the only ones in town that weren't having compromised problems, or at least up with the other ones. They've been oversized and they're working fine. DPW seems to agree, as does the majority of the planning board.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, President Cooper.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan.
Thank you. Councilor DeSimone kind of took my question, but Mr. Catenacci, would you say that these ponds are draining within the 72 hours? Because I know, if you could maybe explain of how it's supposed to go, because I know one fills up and then it drains into the other and so forth. Because this is my ward, and I've had several complaints about, and it's not about necessarily them overflowing. It's about stagnant water sitting and sitting and sitting for, you know, a long period of time, you know, again, not just overflowing. But would you say that they drain within the 72 hours? And maybe you could explain how one bay goes into the other, how it's supposed to work?
Yes, thank you, Laura, for that question. So I would say, so the ponds are designed to drain. They have a design element to them. So they're designed to drain within 72 hours. Now, in the real world, in an engineering world, that doesn't necessarily always mean 72 hours. Most engineers will tell you that the efficiency of ponds will decrease as storms increase and you have a repeat of storms. So to assume that the pond will always drain in 72 hours, I think would be a mistake. They're designed to drain for 72 hours, and the regulations say they're designed to drain within the first storm so that it makes way for the second storm. And then, of course, if you assume that you have a third and a fourth and a fifth and a sixth storm and it keeps going, it's only common sense in good engineering practice that the efficiency of the ponds will at some point diminish.
President Cooper, can I follow up, please?
Sure.
Because I live right near there, and like I said, I've gotten numerous complaints. So when I do get the complaints, I go down. So I'll go down on a Tuesday, see how full they are. I'll go back on Wednesday, Thursday, and is it because from what I'm understanding that it's the law or that it should drain within 72 hours, and if it's diminishing before you're even done with the development, that's not really a good sign. If you said that over time the draining will diminish.
Yeah, well, so the ponds are designed to drain in 72 hours. Whether they actually do or not, I think depends on circumstances and environmental circumstances. We are in an extremely high water table right now. We've had a tremendous amount of weather, rain. And the last time we went by,
Hey, Bob, hold on for 1 second. Steve, oh, there you go. Never mind. You can continue. I just kept hearing some background from Mr. Withers. So you're good, Steve. I mean, you're good, Bob. Go ahead.
Okay, all right, good. So yeah, so diminishing, so the quality of the ponds themselves won't diminish, but the efficiency of the ponds will diminish with storm after storm after storm. So if we were to get a storm every 3 days for the next month, it would be foolish to assume that those ponds would react to the efficiency of they would as if we received the first storm. So there's a lot of engineering that goes into these, and there's also, I guess, when it comes to ponds, some common sense. In my opinion, the ponds are doing exactly what they should do. They're preventing the subdivision from flooding. They're controlling the water. They're allowing it to escape slowly. And I think at the end of the day, they're working as designed. And DPW seems to agree with me.
Thank you. Councilor Holmes, I believe, was next.
Thank you. This is just following up with this line of questioning from Councilor DeSimone and Councilor Dolan. So thank you for being on, but the residents are concerned about this. I think that there's the purpose is to avoid flooding in that area, but then it also 72 hours to have this water basically dissolve. And I hear you're saying, no, everything's working okay, but that's not what the residents are reporting, and that's not what we're noticing. So how would you know if it was failing, and what can be done to resolve that if there is an issue that needs to be addressed here?
So, Bob, I'm going to just interject for one second before you answer, and I would ask you to answer the following questions. I think that the city looked at it and signed off. The majority of the planning board signed off. The consultant, the engineer Horsley Witten group signed off on it. I know that from my experience with this subdivision, I have not heard of roadway flooding. I haven't heard of impacts to the wetlands because these were overflowing and going into the wetland. And Bob or anybody else, correct me if I'm wrong, I also haven't heard of any impacts to blocked storm drains or anything like that, which would suggest that they were not, to me, that would suggest that they were not working properly. So I guess to Councilor Holmes's question, Bob, I think if you could just answer, have you experienced or has the neighborhood in phase one, right? That's what we're talking about here. Has phase one experienced, since these have been completed and your sidewalks in, your roads in, your money's been released, right? There's been a series of sort of issues brought up along the way that I think we may be getting confused with where we are at the end result. And I just want to make sure that we don't do that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. And I would say at the end of the day, to answer your question, the streets have never been flooded. There is no flooding on the ponds. There is no failing of the ponds. They're working textbook, in my opinion. I do believe that the DPW also believes that. And to get to Ms. Holmes's point also, I mean, I'm only aware of Mr. McNamara. He's the only one who's ever approached me about complaining about the ponds. Now, his complaint goes back to when we first started the subdivision. He just didn't want the ponds there. He was the neighbor on the ponds. He's since moved, sold his house, and moved away. I'm not aware of any other resident in phase one complaining about the ponds. Mr. Lima is on phase two, and he has his own agenda. But at the end of the day, I'm not aware of any resident of my 17 houses that are built on phase one that has a problem or complaining with the pond. Please note, Mr. McNamara is not a resident of the neighborhood.
Bob, I have one other question, and then I'll actually, Councilor Holmes, did you have any other questions?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Did your question get answered? Because I know I interjected there, but I wanted to make sure.
No, that's okay. I appreciate it.
Bob, the other thing that comes to mind right after I said let's not confuse the past with the present. I'm going to bring up the past for 1 second because I do remember a commitment from you to, I believe, the planning board when I went to one of the meetings to fence off some of that area. Even did that work happen?
Actually, Mr. President, no. There was that was another a question that we had on the ponds, was fencing. My understanding is that the planning board, past and present, doesn't require or doesn't even want fencing around the ponds. So I do not have any fencing around the ponds. And I'm not sure that it was ever a requirement or even was allowed by the planning board. So
Yeah, I think that's right, Bob. I think that's right. That's my recollection. Any who I think there was somebody else. Did I miss anybody? Councilor Dolan, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I have had other complaints besides Mr. McNamara, and but they didn't want to be too detailed in the sense of their development not being finished. So I can't say exactly who they are, but they wanted to express their concern to me. And, you know, like I said before, their concern isn't just flooding. It's about stagnant water sitting there for long periods of time. And so that's their biggest concern because it breeds mosquitoes. And obviously, I know you were talking about the fence. There were children in the area and everything. And, you know, I have been by there, and I know when you say if we were to get storms on top of each other, well, clearly if we were to get storms every 2 days, you know, that would be a unique situation, but they are designed to drain within 72 hours. You said that that's how they're designed, but that's not what they're doing. And to have them be diminished, you know, when they're 5 years young, you know, to me feels like if it's going to keep diminishing, this doesn't bode well. I mean, you know, it's kind of a moot point, you know, because the funds have been released already. So, you know, I don't know if we had any issues that if you'd make a commitment to fix any issues that come up with this before it's accepted.
Yes, I think you will. So, and so again, as I said, I feel that the ponds are working in a textbook fashion. We have had a lot of rain this season already, and a lot of repeated storms. And the ponds have been doing their jobs. They've been holding the water. They've been catching the water. They've been releasing the water. I mean, these are ponds. It's not a perfect world. We have a tremendous amount of rain and high water right now, and I suspect we'll have that through the winter and through the spring as well. And over the last 6 years, the ponds have been working magnificently. They've never failed. They've never overflown. I mean, I have seen ponds in the town fail, and I've seen them when they're a problem. And I can assure you, and I think DPW has too, that these are not problem ponds.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Mr. Catanacci? Thanks, Bob.
Okay, thank you all, and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor?
President Cooper, Jonathan Mack of 38 Nicholas Drive would like to speak in favor.
Okay, Mr. Mack.
Thank you, Mr. President and council members. I would just like to speak in favor, and I'd like to say that I'm very sensitive to Mr. Lima's issues as our properties actually abut each other, and I have seen some of the drainage issues that he's had, and I am sensitive to Mr. McNamara's issues as well. But my request to have Nicholas Drive and accepted as part of Attleboro, as part of the town, is more towards something that actually Vice President Jackson mentioned, and that is emergency services. in terms of, large snowfall and things like that, where we are reliant on maybe Bob and his crew to clear our street. If God forbid something happens and we are not under the town's jurisdiction for DPW for people that are well trained at clearing roadways to get emergency services to one of our homes, to get our children out, to do anything of that matter, that's of extreme importance. And to stop that emergency service ability seems to be more of a hang-up of a personal nature than something that can be solved maybe through other considerations with the developer on the drainage issues and stuff like that. And also just to point out, I mean, we were the last house in phase one. So, to us, it's important to be able to have the access to emergency services. And if our roads are covered in ice because, a plow wasn't able to get through, that's an issue, and that's a danger. So that's really what I have to say. That, I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Mack? Jonathan, thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone else here to speak neither for nor against?
President Cooper, we just had an Ali Qureshi raise their hand, but they haven't provided any information, so you'll have to get that.
Okay.
Good evening. This is Ali Qureshi. Can you hear me?
We can.
Perfect. I just wanted to echo Mac's comments around emergency services.
Ali, what's your address? What's your address for the record, sir?
Sure. It's 42 Nicholas Drive.
Thank you.
And I'm also in favor of turning the street into Attleboro town, echoing the same concerns around emergency services and snow plowing.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Thank you.
Sure. Welcome.
Thanks. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Okay. Mr. Kovas, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do want to make sure that we can hear from Gary Arasian and Mike Tyler. We can close this public hearing, but as long as we have them come in and present to the committee before voting it out of the committee, I think is incredibly important.
We can do that. We don't need the public hearing to remain open to hear from department heads.
Sounds good. Then I am comfortable closing it.
Thank you. That public hearing is closed. Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the notice of the next public hearing?
Yes, I will. And it is a public hearing regarding Oak Hill Meadows Way, length of 381.41 feet from STA 0+00 to STA 3+81.41 as a public way and accept said way and any unrelated drainage, water, or sewer facilities or easements, all shown on a plan and profile entitled Acceptance Plan, Oak Hill Meadows Way, Attleboro, Massachusetts, dated May 31st, 2019, prepared by Charles T. Camp, RLS, and John C. Spink, PE.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
President Cooper, Bob Catenacci of 487 Oak Hill Ave would like to speak in favor.
Thank you. Bob, long time no see.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, so thank you for having me. So Oak Hill Meadows Way is the second street off of Ritchie Road, which intersects Nicholas Drive. So the same pond area, the same systems that we were just talking about and just had the discussion in that last meeting. Everything applies to this street, I would say, as well. So, excuse me, not really sure there's much more to say, but I will be here if there's any further questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Kobus?
Yes, I have a question. Just there was a lot of talk about the drainage and the 72 hours and this, that, and the other thing. If say, and I know Councilor Dolan has been dealing with this, if she were able to take a picture and prove that say it's not draining in say 4 days, so an extra day, would that be something that you believe should be addressed and fixed? If you say 4 days without any other storms, so there's a storm that ends, 4 days passes, and there's still 2 feet of water in there, do you believe that should be fixed or not?
Well, I believe the answer to that question would be difficult to answer because there would be a lot of factors involved. I mean, I have seen ponds that have drained in 72 hours, and then after the continued season, a wet season, the efficiency of the ponds will go down. So I can't say the ponds themselves can only be judged on just the 72 hours. I think the law that I see is clear that they're designed for 72 hours for the first storm to make way for the second storm. And then, of course, at that point, then it becomes semantics. When exactly is the first storm? Is that when they're bone dry or after they've been saturated with a month or two of rain? Those are difficult questions. I know the ponds were designed the way they should be. I've never seen the ponds, I mean, these ponds don't hold water for weeks and weeks and months. I mean, they just don't. I've had DPW down there over the last month looking at them. And, you know, Bobby Arugio's comment was that they're clearly draining. So that's I guess the input that I have. I hope that answers your question.
Sort of, but not really. Just because I'm looking at a petition signed by a number of people from phase one that talks about the ponds holding 2 feet of water for all of November, for the entire month of November. Now, I didn't see that personally. I'm just going off of what I've been told. But so I was just curious if you believe that if it was holding, you know, if over a period of 4 or 5 days, if it was holding water, if that was something that you believe should be fixed and resolved.
Well, the best thing I can do is, historically speaking, I've seen other ponds in town where, I mean, they do hold water for a week at a time during a wet season.
This was the entire month of November, according to the petition signed by 9 residents at different addresses on Nichols and Ritchie Road. And
yeah, and I have to say that that's false, Counselor, because I've been there. I'm at the job every week, every day, and I don't recall those ponds holding water for a month or two at a time. Not unless we've had repeated storms. Because when you have a storm and then it rains again in 2 days or 3 days before the pond can drain, it's going to fill up again. So there's a lot of factors involved, but no, I have to say my experience is that pond has never held water like that. And not unless it's been enough rainfall to accommodate for that.
so if it was holding water like that, is that something that you believe should be addressed?
Well, again, it's difficult to answer because I don't know the parameters by which we're talking. If we're talking that scenario during an extremely wet month, I don't necessarily think that's a sign of the pond not functioning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Catenacci? Bob, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Thank you again, and you guys be safe again. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone else here? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Okay. Council Jackson. Oh, you muted, Kate.
Thank you. Before you close it, I would ask that the chairman leave it open once again, because I'd like to hear from the department heads that are involved in this and have been involved in this, and we want to know what they think, what's going on. Even though I know we've been told they've signed off, but like Councilor Dolan, she's had a lot of people ask, and Councilor Kobus just said the same thing. Like, people have been saying, you know, different stuff is going on over there. So I'd like to hear from them.
So I don't think we have to keep it open to hear from the department heads. In fact, we don't, right? So.
Right. I don't, but I'm just saying, I would like to hear from them, period.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't think we can. I think that's spot on, Council Jackson. And I think that's Councilor Kobus's intent, is to invite them to a committee meeting. My suggestion would be that he would invite them to a committee meeting. We would have we wouldn't vote maybe that night because some of us may have additional questions. We may want to go see it. We may want to do, there may be other things that we want to do as a result of this. But it's important for all of us to remember that if there's a problem there, the only ones paying to fix it is the city.
Right.
Because the money's been released. It's been a problem Councilor Blair has been chirping about for 20 years. We release the money before we accept the street.
Too soon.
And but in this case, maybe these things are working all right, and this is not the forum for that discussion.
Right.
But I think that with the planning board decision, with Gary needs to come talk us through why they came to that decision, what supporting documentation supports that these ponds are functioning the way they were intended to function. I don't think you can say, oh, you have a storm on Tuesday and you have a storm on Thursday. Does the thing drain in 72 hours? Well, did you have a 100-year storm? Did you have a 50-year storm? Did you have a 25-year storm? Did you have a 10-year storm? What did you have? How much did you have? Was the whole thing done? Were the sidewalks in, right? There were a lot of things that happened throughout this subdivision and others. This isn't the only one. This happens frequently. One off of Reed Street drove me crazy as the chairman of the Conservation Commission for years. So there's this is just.
Let's nip this in the bud right now.
I agree, but we have to change
right now.
We have to change the
Councilor
ordinance to
Dolan.
do that. So, any other questions or comments, Councilor Delicio?
Real quick, through the president to Councilor Kobus, where we're on the same committee, we can't really talk about it outside of here. I would like to suggest, and obviously at the mercy of the chair, but I think a site visit with the department heads to go down and see it in person might be a way that we can actually get more context around really what the issue is.
That sounds great. I'll coordinate that. And to Vice President Jackson's point, I definitely intend to have Gary Arasion and Mike Tyler come in for the committee meeting next week, provided they're available. But I don't see a need to keep the public hearing open.
Okay, this public hearing is also closed. Moving on to, I'm gonna find my notes, the mayor's communication, but I gotta find it in my pile of paper first. And I need to find the clerk's communication too. Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the mayor's communication?
Okay, if there's any way you want me to stop on some of these, because I think it's like 9 pages. So here we go.
Just before you start, Steve, on the loan orders.
Yep.
I don't Unless anybody objects, I don't think you need to read the entire thing, just the introductory paragraph for what it
Okay.
is, the amount.
Fine, perfect. Very good. January 5th, 2021. Dear municipal councilors, I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Veteran Services, Ben Quill, regarding the donation of $295 in Stop and Shop gift cards from the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution, or DAR, Attleboro Chapter. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Veteran Services, Ben Quell, regarding the donation of $250 in Market Basket gift cards from the Holiday Spirit Committee. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Attleboro Public Schools Director of Finance, Mark Furtado, regarding a fiscal year 2019 invoice from Ford Motor Municipal Finance in the amount of $923.89 that was not received in time to be processed in the normal fiscal year 2019 business cycle. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to authorize the school department to pay this previous year's school bill. Copies in your packets.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Attleboro Public Schools Director of Finance, Mark Furtado, regarding a lease for 5 copiers. In accordance with Section 5-8 lease purchase agreement of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to approve a 36-month lease agreement with Conica Minolta. Copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
For your information, I regret to inform your honorable body that we have received the resignation of Ann Spinelli from the Council on Aging Board of Directors. Please join me in thanking Ms. Spinelli for her service to the city. I respectfully submit a communication from Legal Secretary Allison Wood regarding a vehicle that the Water Department would like to declare as surplus. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to declare the following as surplus and available for disposition. It is a 2004 Ford Ranger. It has 145,000 miles on it and it's in poor condition.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Legal Secretary Allison Wood regarding vehicles that the Police Department would like to declare as surplus. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to declare the following as surplus and available for disposition. Copies in your packets. There is a 2013 Ford Explorer SUV with 104,911 miles. It's in poor condition. And a 2010 Dodge Charger with 99,777 miles in poor condition.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Council on Aging Director Madeline McNeely regarding the donation of $50 in Visa gift cards and $275 from the Holiday Spirit Committee. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Health Department Outreach Worker / Case Manager Tessa Silva and Public Health Nurse Jacqueline Joyle O'Brien regarding the donation of $300 in Market Basket gift cards and $50 Visa cards from the Holiday Spirit Committee. These cards will be offered by the Health Department's Public Health Nurse and Outreach Worker to individuals and families in need. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous gifts to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from the Chair of the Attleboro Council on Human Rights, Lori Sawyer, regarding a donation of 250 marketing flyers for the Attleboro Council on Human Rights with a value of $120.65 from Taryn McCarthy of Moo Inc. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept this generous donation to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, please.
As your honorable body is aware, the upgrade of the existing SCADA system located at the wastewater department is categorized as priority 1 in the fiscal year 2021 through 2025 capital improvements program. The project consists of replacement of the SCADA servers, historian, backup, RACO server and client, and all necessary SCADA software, as well as upgrading all existing programmable logic controllers to the latest version and any necessary cabling. The existing SCADA system is well past its useful life and parts are no longer available. These components are explained in greater detail in the memorandum from Superintendent of Wastewater, Thomas Hayes. Copies in your packet. So there's a loan authorization of $935,000 is now needed for this project.
Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, please. And Council Conti, would you like to call for a public hearing on that matter on February 2nd?
Absolutely.
Thank you. A roll call vote is required. And we'll begin with
Councilor Holmes, I think.
Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. We'll have a public hearing on that matter on February 2nd.
Okay. As your honorable body is aware, the baseline flow monitoring for infiltration and inflow is categorized as priority 1 in the fiscal year 2021 through 2025 capital improvements program. The project consists of monitoring flow in large basins, quantifying infiltration rates and volume in each basin, CCTV manhole and building inspections. The objective is to measure flows in the entire collection system and identify areas with excessive infiltration and or inflow. Target investigations will then follow and rehabilitation will take place in the identified areas with the worst infiltration and inflow. These components are explained in greater detail in a memorandum from Superintendent of Wastewater Thomas Hayes. Copies in your packets. A loan authorization of $250,000 is now needed for this project.
Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, please. And again, Council Conti, would you like to have a public hearing on February 2nd?
Absolutely.
Thank you. A roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay. As your honorable body is aware, the replacement of the gate valves for the lift pumps located at the South Attleboro pumping station is categorized as a priority 1 in the fiscal year 2021 through 2025 capital improvement program. The project consists of design, permitting, bidding, construction oversight, and replacement of 8 gate valves. The existing valves are worn out and no longer seal. These components are explained in greater detail in a memorandum from Superintendent of Wastewater Thomas Hayes. Copies in your packets. As shown below, a loan authorization of $367,000 is now needed for this project.
Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, and again, Council Conti, February 2nd.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The roll call vote will begin with Council Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Oops, sorry. I respectfully submit a communication from the Director of Budget and Administration, Jeremy Stull, on the need to fund a capital project fund for the replacement of 2 fire station roofs. I hereby request that the Honorable Municipal Council vote to transfer $25,000 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for Capital to account Citywide Transfer to Capital Fund, and to further transfer $25,000 from Citywide Transfer to Capital Project Fund to fund fire department roofs, other financing sources for costs associated with procurement, design, and construction of the roofs at Briggs Corner and Union Street fire stations. Copies in your packets.
Public Safety Committee, please.
In furtherance of the Water Department's fiscal 2021 through 2025 capital improvement program, the Wading River pilot study is categorized as urgent. The pilot study consists of testing of the Wading River unfiltered and finished water, consultant services, equipment rental, and water quality analysis and sampling to reduce the total TTHM, forming compounds, and PFAS through the treatment process. This project is explained in greater detail in a memorandum from Superintendent of Water, Courtney Winchell. Copies in your packets. As shown below, a loan authorization of $500,000 is now needed for this project.
Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, please. And once again, Council Conti, February 2nd.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. We'll have a public hearing on February 2nd.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Water, Courtney Winchell, regarding the Wading River pilot study for TTHM and PFAS reduction. In the fall of 2020, the Water Department took part in a mass DEP program for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS. This program waives the fees for testing and possibly grandfathers Attleboro from the first regulated round of testing in the spring. In addition, should plant upgrades be needed for the PFAS removal, Attleboro's participation in the mass DEP voluntary testing program gives the city higher priority than non-participating municipalities for any available grant money. The Water Department has retained the assistance of Tata and Howard in applying for a grant through Mass DEP. The funds through this grant are intended to offset the cost of design and engineering relative to treatment plant upgrades in order to remove PFAS compounds from the raw water at the plant. If the Water Department receives this grant, there will be up to $200,000 available to help offset the cost of this necessary project. If selected for grant funding, the Water Department expects notification by February 5th, 2021. Additionally, although the potential award of this grant may reduce the amount of the city ultimately needs to borrow for this project, it is important to know that the loan authorization is needed in the full amount in order for the project to move forward. Should the Water Department not need the full authorization because of the grant or other savings, only the amount needed will be borrowed. Copies in your packets.
Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, and this item is related to the previous one.
Right. Right. I respectfully submit a communication with Director of Budget and Administration, Jeremy Stoll, regarding the need for funds to be transferred to pay for fire department related to a capital project fund. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $9,945.87 from account Fire Department firefighting supplies to account Fire Department fire safety equipment. Copies in your packets.
Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Schools, David Sawyer, regarding the donation of school supplies with an estimated value of $356.40 for Coelho Middle School from Walmart. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept the generous donations to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit correspondence from Coogan Smith, LLP, regarding the donation of 5 trees to the city from the Walsh-Perry Partnership. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept this generous donation to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
All right. I respectfully submit a communication from City Auditor Deborah Gould regarding Fund 3337, Park Place, Lonsdale Ave, and Fund 3333, Roy Avenue. As you know, the Water Superintendent has communicated the need for the cleaning and lining of Park Place and Lonsdale Avenue. The estimated cost of the project is $206,000, which includes a contingency amount of 15%. The funding plan for this project is to request the honorable body transfer remaining funds from unused capital projects. A review of all water enterprise capital project funds was completed, and a number of small balances remain in projects that have been completed. As such, it is recommended that these balances be transferred into the newly created capital project fund established for Park Place and Lonsdale Avenue cleaning and lining project. In addition, a transfer into the Roy Avenue project to close the HVAC project is proposed. This transfer will properly close the completed HVAC fund and will reduce the amount the city treasurer will need to finance the Roy Avenue project. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to take the following actions. In order to properly close Fund 3316, Water Storage Facility, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer
Steve,
22. Yes.
Steve, I think we can waive the reading of the individual fund closures until we get to the committee, unless anyone disagrees.
No.
Good.
That's good. Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you. I respectfully submit the communication from Director of Budget and Administration, Jeremy Stoll, outlining the need for transfers to fund 2 Water Department capital projects. As you know, your honorable body approved a loan order for the Roy Ave project August 20th, 2019. It was vote number 2. The project is complete and we are awaiting the last pay application from the contractor. As Deb Gould states in her memo, the closing of the HVAC Phase 2 fund, or Fund 3328, will reduce the amount the city needs to borrow by $17,714.05. Additionally, the majority of the fund requested to be transferred in the December 29th, 2020 memorandum is for the cleaning and lining at Park Place and Lonsdale Avenue. This project has not begun yet. The transfers from other funds will allow the project to be funded entirely with existing resources, and no further borrowing for this project is anticipated.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
And I respectfully submit a communication from Economic Development Director Catherine Furyk regarding the need for authorization for the proposed tax increment exemption, or TIE, agreement as required under the Mass Housing Development Incentive Program, or HDIP, for 54 Union Street. The approved tie structure has been negotiated between the development team and the Economic Development Incentive Board. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body authorize the following resolution for the mayor to enter into the tie agreement with 54 Union LLC pursuant to Mass General Law 40V, Section 4, subsection B1, and MGL 59, Section 5M. Do you want me to read the whole thing?
No, you don't need to read the entire thing. That Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, but I do have a question for Council Conti. Council Conti, was there an expected turnaround time at the last meeting? I was away of the Economic Development Incentive Board, so I want to be mindful of that and could call for a special meeting on the 26th. We had discussed a timeline, but I want to be mindful of their timeline. Is there anything discussed?
Believe that they're prepared to move forward. They took a vote, and the proposal has been accepted by the developer.
Okay, so Council Conti, let's call for a public hearing on this matter on January 19th.
Absolutely.
But Virginia, that means it needs to be advertised quickly, and Catherine and Virginia can work on the advertisement. So the public hearing we're aiming for is January 19th. And the roll call vote, I believe, would begin with Council Holmes.
Believe so. Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Kobus.
Yes.
Mr. Delicio.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
So if needed, we can have the public hearing on the 19th. We'll just clarify with Catherine tomorrow if a public hearing is necessary or just a vote of the council is necessary, but we're prepared for the 19th if necessary.
Very good. Sincerely, Paul Heroux, Mayor.
Thank you. And moving on to the clerk's communication.
Yes, we have a few here today. We have a Class 2 application for a new car dealer, Trusted Auto Inc. at 64 Pleasant Street with 5 customer spaces and 18 storage spaces.
License committee, please.
And that does require a public hearing. And we're going to do it on the 19th.
Yep. January, Councilor Dolan, would you like to call for a public hearing on that matter on January 19th?
Yes, I believe we already did that.
We did?
I feel like we already called for this public hearing.
How could we before we had the application, or did we have the application already?
We did have the application. I'm sorry, Steve.
No, go ahead.
Yes,
we had
public
the application,
hearing
but it
on,
wasn't complete. there was something missing. If my memory serves me right, there was something missing in this application. Something didn't come back yet that was required to.
I think it was the quarry.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
and he came in like 3 or 4 times because he kept forgetting things.
God, Mark, I wish I had your genes. You never forget a thing.
Yeah, I think it was
but
the
if you
quarry
ask my
form,
husband, he
but
might have something different to say about that. But thank you, Councilor Jackson.
Okay. Do we want to vote on the public hearing?
Yes, please. The vote will begin with
Councilor Blair.
Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Delicio. Is he there? Mr. Delicio.
Nope.
No.
He is not.
He's not there. Okay. Mr. Kobus.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. I'll have a public hearing on that matter on January 19th.
We also received an automatic amusement devices license application from Chuck E. Cheese, number 464 at 287 Washington Street with 64 skill/kiddie ride/video games.
License committee, please.
We received a communication from Attorney John Jacoby with a question answer follow-up for the 754 Newport Avenue rezoning request.
Zoning and land use committee, please.
We received correspondence from the Attleboro Licensing Board regarding a request for a reconsideration of licensing fees due to the pandemic. That's an FYI.
Thank you.
We received a communication from Brian Churchill with questions about recycling of holiday trees and paper.
Go to the administration. Be referred to the administration. I think that was posted that it could go out at certain times.
Yep.
With your regular trash.
Okay, and we also received a communication from Beth Cox of Nick Rock Road against the rezoning of 754 Newport Avenue.
Zoning and land use committee, please.
And that is it.
Thank you. Now, at this time, I'd entertain a motion to enter committee of the whole.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Roll call vote will begin with, why do I keep, Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Kobus.
Yes.
Mr. Delicio.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. We are now in committee of the whole. If there's any participants that want to address the council on any matter of city business, now would be the time. All right. I think I would entertain a motion to arise.
Second.
All those in, I wish.
Yeah, no.
We'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Delicio.
Yes.
Mr. Kobus.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. We are moving on to committee reports, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reporting for public safety and emergency management, I have 2 motions this evening to bring forward. From the docket of January 5th, 2021, I move to transfer $9,391.78, excuse me, account 1124100057830 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 1210100-515030 police city sick leave incentive to pay contractual sick leave stipends for FY21.
Second,
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional comments?
As I just read, this is contractual, so it's got to be done.
Okay. Any additional questions? Seeing none, a roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Just hold that 1 second. Councilor Dolan, did you vote?
No, I had to step away for a second.
Oh, did I skip her? I'm sorry.
No, it was a skip on Councilor Reynolds when she was muted. So I think you might have heard yes twice, but Councilor Dolan's screen was blank. So I believe it was 10 to.
Yeah, I had to step away. Sorry.
10-0.
10 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 absent. Dolan.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem. And Councilor Blair.
Motion passes, correct?
Motion passes. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I don't very seldom catch you. January 5th, 2021. I move to transfer 25,000 from account 112410000-578300 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 122010000-582510 fire department renovations for the needed fire department kitchen renovation.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order.
Just a comment. Glad to see this come down. This is a need that's been hanging around for a long time. And I'm really pleased to see it come forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
I have no other business this evening, Mr. President, but I request a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Thank you. At this time, could we entertain a motion for a 4-minute recess?
Second,
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional questions or comments? A roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. The council is 9:32, having a 4-minute recess.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call the council back to order at 9:36. And I will now recognize Councilor DeSimone.
Thank you, President Cooper. Reporting for the Traffic and Transportation Committee, I have but one order of item of business this evening, please. From the docket of July 21st, 2020, I move to approve the request to extend the no parking area on Scott Street, southerly side, from Route 1 to pole 2321, approximately 330 feet from Route 1.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments?
I have none, President Cooper.
Thank you.
President, who was the second there?
Councilor Dolan.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from the council? Seeing none, roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yeah.
Is he there?
Yeah, he said yes.
Okay, sorry. Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman. Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes. Ms. Holmes.
Sorry, yes.
I'm sorry. And President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, President Cooper. That concludes the business of this committee for the evening. We look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reporting for Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, I have two motions to bring before the council this evening. From the docket of January 5th, 2021, I move to approve the expenditure of an awarded grant of $151,500 for the implementation of a disaster recovery infrastructure and approve expending such funds and any future grant amendments. The grant must be spent by January 1st, 2022.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments?
We discussed this last week in committee. This is a result of Bill Lennox writing for a grant through the Community Compact Committee. Karen Polito is the chair, and it's a very competitive grant. And what Bill is doing with this $151,000 is building a off-site backup system for the entire city computer program system, which will further protect us against attacks, invasions, and a loss of data. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments?
How lucky are we?
Yes, very lucky.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's right.
Thank you. A roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes. Ms.
Yes.
Holmes. Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yeah.
Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. From the docket of December 1st, 2020, I move to approve the request to waive fees collected by the city associated with Attleboro Pawtucket Interconnection Project according to the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments?
Only that it's not wise for the city to charge itself permit fees for city improvements. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Mrs. Holmes.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes the business the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee has to bring before the council this evening. We look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Waterman.
Yes, from the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, reporting, I have 4 items to bring forth. From the docket of January 5th, 2020, I move to accept a donation of $755 in gift cards donated to the Veterans Office by the Alpha Delta Kappa Salon chapter.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments?
Just to say that this is a very generous donation. Thank you.
Thank you. A roll call vote will begin with Council Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Licio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Reason.
Thank you. And from the docket of January 5th, 2020, I move to transfer $16,749.54 from account citywide reserve fund for transfer to account clerk's salary to hire a senior clerk for the city clerk's office.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments?
Well, I think President Cooper, you explained it very well last week. This will not only help the city clerk's office, it will also help the city council office. So I think that's an idea.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call will begin with Council Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Licio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
You
Yes.
forgot Laura.
Oh, sorry, Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And from the docket of January 5th, 2020, I move to approve the following resolution to be sent to the State House to support our Attleboro state legislators. Request to implement a Stop the Spread COVID-19 free testing site in the city of Attleboro. And shall I read this whole
No.
item?
Yes.
You can waive the reading of that resolution. Council Holmes, did you second?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments, Council Waterman?
Well, just to say that this effort is still going forward. Representative Hawkins is working away at this along with other legislators, and let's hope our efforts come to fruition.
Great, thank you. Any additional comments, Council Holmes?
Thank you. I really want to thank Council Cobus for working on this because I know he did have a lot to do with writing this. We're lucky to have him on the council. Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Council Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Licio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And from the docket of March 3rd, 2020, I move to approve the request for the reappointment of Joe Parent to the Fire Commission.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional questions or comments?
Yes.
Just to say, I think Joe will continue to make an excellent representative on the commission.
Yeah. Council Jackson.
Just to let you know, he's the only one right now on the commission, right? And I hope that they add someone to the commission if they decide to continue it. And Joe is a nice guy. Period.
Thank you. Any additional questions? or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
It's the business of the Personnel Veterans Human Services Committee, and we'll meet again next week.
Great. Thank you. Vice President Jackson.
Thank you, President Cooper. Reporting from the Public Works Committee from the docket of January 5th, 2021. I move to transfer $8,920.56 from the account of Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to the Citywide Professional Service account for a camera to be installed to track illegal dumping.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order.
Councilor Dolan. So yes, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of councilors had asked if it was legal, and yes, it is. I had actually checked, and we're in good hands. And obviously, as Chief Hegney said, I would never jeopardize my reputation or my lifetime as a chief and not do something that was illegal. You know what I mean? Like not do something that was legal. So yeah, everything's all good. And so we're gonna put these cameras into one particular spot in the beginning to try and figure it out. If we can find the people that are illegally dumping, and we will watch them. And it has been proven in the town of Rentham, they're like the guinea pigs. And so they've gone to court with all their pictures, and they have been able to arrest, I shouldn't say arrest. What's the word I'm looking for?
Charge, perhaps.
Yes, thank you. And so they've been able to do that with the cameras and watching what's been going on. So yeah, we're gonna do it too.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
No.
No, I'm sorry.
No.
And President Cooper.
Yes.
10 yeas, 1 nay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Got to write that down. Thank you. From the docket of December 15, 2020, I entertain a motion to transfer $9,938.70 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer account to Citywide Trash Receptacle account to replace trash bins in the city center.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is
Dylan?
in order. Any additional comments or questions?
Nope, none for me.
Thank you. A roll call vote is required and we'll begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, President Cooper. I have no other business for the Public Works Committee. And I would like to say to all of you this evening, since I did not get to say that to you, I'm so happy to see you're all healthy. And I hope your families are healthy as well. It's good to see you. And I can't wait to move on to the new year with all of you.
Thank you. Moving on to Councilor Delissio.
Thank you, President Cooper, reporting for budget and appropriations from the docket of January 5th, 2021. I move to authorize the school department to pay fiscal 2020 school bills totaling $732.55 as these fiscal obligations were not received in normal billing cycle. Vendor Gov Connection Incorporated, $165.67.55. Massachusetts School Administrators Association, $195. Brittany Kissamore, $370.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments?
We have none, President Cooper.
Any additional questions from the council? Seeing a roll call vote, we'll begin with Council Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, President Cooper, from the docket of January 5th, 2021, I move to transfer $40,000 from account citywide reserve fund for transfer to account treasurer professional services for attorney fees for the remainder of fiscal 21.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments?
I do briefly, I would just, again, remind everyone this is for tax title and some of the tax takings, which Laura Gignac needs in the treasurer's office, and just keep this in mind come budget time, as I'll be pushing to increase that line item so we don't have to go through this exercise every year.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the council? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Council Holmes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
bless you,
Bless you.
Thank you.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. That is all the business I have for budget and appropriations, and would like to call for a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Cobus.
Reporting for the Zoning and Land Use Committee, we don't have any business tonight. I would encourage you to keep an eye on your emails. I'll try to set up a site visit for that pond for this weekend, if people can make it. And I call for committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Dolan.
Reporting for Licenses Committee, I have one motion tonight from the docket of January 5th, 2021. I entertain a motion to approve the application from Seekonk Gas and Gas Repair, Inc., DBA 123 Mobile at 300 County Street with 4 customer parking spaces and 9 storage spaces.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional questions or comments?
No comments.
Thank you. The roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. Councilor Dolan. You're muted.
Can you hear me?
Okay, now.
I can't hear any of you.
You were
If you
muted.
can hear me, that's all the business that License Committee has, and look forward to a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
We heard you.
We
I
hear
heard
you
you.
now. We hear you now, Laura.
Thank you. I heard you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Reynolds.
Reporting for City Property and Claims Committee, Council Cooper, if I might, President Cooper. I'm going to waive the reading of all of these. I did them at the last meeting. From the docket of January 5th, 2021, I move to declare the following 21 Attleboro School Department copiers as surplus and available for disposition.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion is in order. Any additional comments?
I have none.
The roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes,
11 yeas, 0 nays.
thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of January 5th, 2021, I move to declare the following police department vehicle as surplus and available for disposition. It's a 2011 Ford CV with 91,000 miles, and it's in poor condition.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional comments?
I have none.
Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Council Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yeah.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes,
11 yeas, 0 nays. And Mr. President, who'd you have for a second on that one?
Council Blair.
Thank you.
The docket of January 5th, 2021, I move to approve the anonymous donation of a Logitech C922X webcam with an estimated value of $120 to the school district to support the remote learning environment.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order.
And
Any additional questions, comments?
I have none.
Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Council Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes,
11 yeas, 0 nays.
thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of November 3rd, 2020, I move to approve the request of the Water Department to declare the following equipment as surplus and available for disposition: 200 water meters in used condition.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional questions or
I have
comments?
none.
Thank you. Roll call vote will begin with Council Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yeah.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes,
11 yeas, 0 nays.
thank you.
That is all the business city claims has this evening, but I would like to call a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Great, thank you. Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. Reporting for Ordinance, Elections, and Legislative Matters Committee. This evening, we did have a vote to redo because there was a veto from the administration, so I will call for that right now. I entertain a motion to reconsider the vote of December 15th, 2020 to approve the proposed amendments for the ordinance changes by the Health Department to Section 7-7, Collection of Solid Waste.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Councilor Jackson, I'm just going to surrender the floor to you so I can make some brief comments on this, and then you can pass it back to me for any additional comments.
Okay, give me a second, because it
Okay.
takes me like 4.5 minutes to get to City Hall, and I'll sit there in your seat, and I'll look like you in 1 minute. Okay?
No, you got to come to West Street and come into my office.
Oh, I would love to do that. You have a
But
beautiful
you got to
home.
wear a mask. You got to wear a mask.
Yes, I'm here now. We're good.
Thank you. I did speak to the mayor and the city solicitor today regarding this issue based on our conversation from last week. Really override this, what we would be doing, a yes vote in this case would be, we would be overriding the mayor's veto, which I am, and he is in support of, and I'm going to get into the reasons why in a minute. A no vote would support the mayor's veto of this trash ordinance. Overriding the veto really is to fix a technicality between the current contract and the current ordinance. You all remember that we were, no pun intended, over a barrel with regard to the contract, right? Because we had to do a contract revision and do a new contract, which is where we're at today. So we were in a bit of a quandary with regard to how to proceed. So really, very simply put, the timing of the contract and the timing of the ordinance are not aligned. And this ordinance is consistent with the contract, with the exception of some of the fees and the fines for illegal dumping that were approved as part of this. And I'm going to make an amendment to satisfy that one piece in just a minute. The mayor is planning to send down changes to this ordinance on the 19th of January to fix any inconsistency, and really approving the overriding the veto will provide the ordinance and the citizens of the city with the information that they need to be paying the correct rate, the bulk program, the amnesty days that everybody worked hard to get completed, as described by the mayor and the health department. So really, again, a yes vote on this issue is to override, and the ordinance that we put forward would pass. A no vote is that you do not agree with the ordinance, and the ordinance would fail. So with that, I'm going to offer an amendment to section 7-7.8 under fines. And what I would like to change is the first offense where it says any person who violates any provision of this ordinance shall be punished by a fine according to the following schedule. The first offense is $25. I'd like to make an amendment to make that 50, and I'm going to tell you why. Again, very simply put, it's cheaper to chuck it in the woods and get fined $25 than it is to pay the $29 to have them come pick it up. So that, thank you. Oh, that's not for me to throw, that's for you to say. So my amendment is to change for Council Vice President Jackson. I changed, my amendment would be to change the first offense of $25 to $50.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
What was the number that was being changed again? I'm sorry.
$25, sir.
The section.
7.7-7.8.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's titled fines, and it currently, if I may, Vice President Jackson.
Please, President Cooper, continue.
Any person who violates any provision of this ordinance shall be punished by a fine according to the following schedule. First offense currently reads $25. The amendment is to increase the 25 to 50.
Second.
We have a second on that amendment, correct?
That is correct.
Yes. Do we have any questions about that? Councilor Cobus, I knew your arm was going to come up. Go ahead.
I just need a couple minutes to pull up the ordinance. I believe there were two sections defining the fines. One was for general violations, and the other was for illegal dumping. And so I just want to keep going and talking, but I just want to verify a couple things. So please don't vote on anything yet.
Councilor Conti, you have the biggest hand
I put it right in front of the camera. You
superimpose. Please.
I'm going to support.
Wow.
I'm going to support Councilor Cooper's amendment because it changes the fine from below what we're being charged by waste management to a fine that's above what we're being charged by waste management, which I think is smart. And I voted against it. I voted against the $25 before because I thought it was not enough to be significant to impair dumping. So I think even $50 is light, but I know that there's resistance in the council for stiff fines in a pandemic, and that has my heart. So Councilor Cooper, thank you for making the amendment. You have my support, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Conti. Anyone else? Looking at all those pretty faces. Someone raise a hand. We're good. Council Cobus, are you good?
So
Not yet. So this section 7.9 talks about unauthorized dumping. And that's where 7-9.2 says whoever violates a provision of this ordinance shall be liable for a fine of $25. So by making this change, you still, President Cooper, you still don't change it. So if I wanted to throw something in the woods, it would still be a $25 fine, based on my understanding, if you look at 7-9.2.
no, that's not, that is
No.
correct. That is
Thank
correct.
you.
Wait a minute,
Wait.
if I may. That is correct. But that's the, that motion failed.
Right.
This isn't the entire thing. He only vetoed what we passed. 7-9 failed. So that still exists today the way it exists today.
Understood. So all I'm saying is the change you're making, though, doesn't impact throwing things away. So I would expect 7-9.2 to be something that the mayor amends when he sends down his additional revisions.
Right. That's the inconsistencies in the ordinance versus the contract. And so in order to fix a piece of it, where it says any person who violates any provision of this ordinance, which is section 7-7, would be subject to this fine of $50. Right? It doesn't apply to the 7-9 section, which is a problem. That motion failed when we voted it before the council.
Okay, so this would just change it. So if you throw, if you leave your barrels out for a week, this changes that to a $50 fine. But it doesn't fix that. I can still take my refrigerator and kick it out the back of my truck on West Street, right?
Yeah, people do. I've picked them up. But actually, you know what I have? It's a thing of beauty. I have a TV case that somebody shipped by Amazon that still has the shipping label on it that they threw off on West Street. I won't publicly humiliate them, but I will give them a call.
So with that said, in general, I can get behind raising the fee to $50, but I wanted to understand exactly what we were agreeing to here. And so and make sure we understood that this doesn't affect the fee for illegal dumping.
At this point, at this moment, that is a true statement until we get any revisions that come on the 19th, because that motion failed. Actually, the old ordinance would apply. Whatever the rate is in the old ordinance.
It's $25.
But again, it's cheaper to, I don't want to repeat myself, but it doesn't make a lot of sense that we didn't pass something and revise that a couple weeks ago. Which is back to Richard.
We good? Council Cobus, go ahead.
One more question. President, if I may, President Cooper, did you change the 8th offense total?
I didn't, because we're splitting hairs, right? So just add it, whatever it is. It's going to change. This was in an effort to make it more in line with what we're thinking in the new revised ordinances of $50. The fees.
Okay. So based on that, the 7th and 8th offense will be $200. Got it. I'm now comfortable voting.
Great. Councilor Delicio, I see your hand. Nice to see you.
Thank you. I'm all set. Thank you.
Oh, good. Anyone else? Come on. Bring it on. It's kind of getting late. You're going to have one more question, I'm sure.
So again, this, just a point of order, Vice President
Yes.
Jackson. So this is just on the amendment.
Yes, yes. So we're going to vote just on the amendment. And we will begin with, I believe, Council Holmes.
You muted, Steve.
Mr. Withers?
Steve, you're muted.
Yep, Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays on the amendment.
As amended, we will start with Council Blair.
No, hold on, point of order.
Oops, I'm so sorry. Excuse me. President Cooper, correct me.
The chair comes back to me.
Oh, so back to you.
Thank you. So any additional questions on the motion as amended? Counselor Holmes and then Cobus.
Thank you. I do think that I was in contact with the city solicitor as well, and I think that we do need to have something passed. I would encourage everybody to vote yes on this.
Thank you. Counselor Cobus.
I too encourage everybody to vote yes on this. I understand that this has been a difficult thing where the contract was approved in February in January now, and we're still in the ordinance still doesn't align. I don't like how this happened, but I think the sooner we get the city out of this position, the better. The one question I did have for anybody, do we know if any residents have challenged this and have put,
To me.
filed anything because they put out bulk items and the city didn't pick it up for free, even though the ordinance says we're responsible to do so?
No, so I can tell you that I did have some inquiry around what prevails, and I talked through that with the individuals that we were under a contract, and that it was in council and would be voted. I suppose somebody could. I haven't heard that it's happened. I did talk to the mayor today and the city solicitor today for about an hour and a half about this particular issue. And then neither one of them expressed that had come forward. The trash program as it exists through this ordinance and through the contract was well sort of published through the Board of Health and other social media avenues and the Sun Chronicle. So it's well known.
And nobody's asked for their $29 to be refunded at all?
Not that I've been made aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Councilor Delissio and then, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, Delissio and then Conti.
Thank you, President Cooper. This is the right move at the right time. I think what this illustrates is an opportunity for better communication and collaboration from the administration and the council, so we don't find ourselves in a situation again where the contract doesn't meet the ordinance or vice versa, because that's the situation we're in right now. Not saying that we should have a seat at the table, because I understand the delineation. What I am saying is I think a little heads up back in January or February of last year probably could have headed some of this off, especially heading into the budget season. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Councilor Conti.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. My comments ride right alongside Councilor Delissio with a slightly different take. I'm going to vote no on this measure, even if I'm alone, because I believe, just like Councilor Delissio just said, I haven't liked this from the beginning. I didn't like putting the cart before the horse. I didn't like the way the contract was negotiated. I didn't like the entire process. And I see it a little bit differently than Council Delicio. I see this as an administrative function. The council controls the checkbook, the administration controls the contracts. The council sets the ordinances, but the administration administers the waste management program. So I want to see the administration come up with a solution on January 19th, and I want to see them resolve this problem to our satisfaction. So while Council Cooper bring up some good points, and I voted for the change in the fees just in case it does pass. But you see, it's better to let the administration do the management of this contract and this fee structure rather than having 13 people try to negotiate it out, the council and the administration. So I won't override the mayor's veto because I think he overrid it because he wants to fix the problem, and I want to give him an opportunity to fix it or fail it because the public will be paying attention and ultimately he's going to be responsible. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Councilor Dolan.
Good comments.
So won't overriding the veto give the administration the opportunity to fix it? Am I wrong? Like I'm asking. So if we override it, so he can go back and we can get everything straight and vote on it. Am I correct?
Yeah, well, it depends on what he presents, right? I don't want to say yes because I've seen drafts of what the mayor intends to send down. I know he had a preliminary conversation with Councilor Holmes, with the city solicitor. He intends to send that down on the 19th. But in the meantime, we have an ordinance that is inconsistent with the contract if we don't pass this. And then we're to Councilor Kobus's point, we have a problem.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Delicio, I think you're up.
All right, thank you, President Cooper. Just through the chair to Councilor Conti. I appreciate the civics lesson, but that's what I was saying when I said there is a certain delineation. I certainly understand that we control that proverbial checkbook and it's the mayor's responsibility to enter into the contract. My comments were more along the lines of, if we're going to enter into a contract as the city, we should have some semblance of an idea and an understanding of what that potentially could look like. So we're not, to your point, I think you're right with the cart and the horse analogy. I think we just open the lines of communication a little bit better. It was great to see the mayor come down. I'm glad the mayor is listening to our concerns about how to change this ordinance and how to get it so it meshes better with the ordinance and the contract mesh a little bit better, so we can move past this, because this has been really drawn out, and kudos to Council Holmes for ushering this through in the way she has. It hasn't been easy.
Thank you. Any additional questions on the ordinance, the section 7-7 as amended? Council Holmes.
Thank you. So just a yes vote would mean we already voted on this. A lot of us said yes. So I think a yes vote would continue with that. We can see what the administration is going to bring down on the 19th. And again, that may require a public hearing and the whole process to start over again. I'm not really sure what that's going to look like. But right now, we have two things that do not match, the ordinance and the contract. And this has been going on for some time. So I really would just encourage all of us to vote yes on this. And we can, it's a revised city, it's revised ordinances. So we can always circle back and kind of see what needs to be shifted or changed here. And I'm open to that. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Seeing none, roll call vote will begin, I believe, with Councilor Blair.
I believe so. Mr. Blair.
Is everybody clear? Before you do that, Steve, is everybody clear on what we're voting?
Override, right?
We're voting to override section 7-7.
So a yes vote means, and a no vote means?
So, yep, for the third time, a yes vote means that you are in agreement and you want to override the mayor's veto. A no vote means you do not want to override the mayor's veto. Is everybody clear? Okay, the roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
No.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson. Vice President Jackson, Kate, you're muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. DeLisio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
10 yeas, 1 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Council Holmes.
Thank you. That's all the business this evening.
No.
Another
Two
vote.
more votes on this. There were 3 votes in total. So you have to do section 7-8 and 7-10. They're all separate votes that were vetoed.
Is it to approve the proposed amendments for the ordinance changes by the Health Department for the following amendments to sections 7-8, solid waste collection fees?
That is correct. So just do it as a formal motion. I entertain a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I entertain a motion. Sorry about that. I entertain a motion to approve the proposed amendments for the ordinance changes by the Health Department for the following amendments to section 7-8, solid waste collection fees.
Second.
Who was the second on that? I missed that.
Vice President Jackson.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion is in order. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote. And again, a yes vote is to override the veto. A no vote is to approve the veto. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote, I believe, will begin with Council Holmes.
Yes, Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yeah.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. DeLisio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
No.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
10 yeas, 1 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. And Council Holmes.
Thank you. I entertain a motion to approve the proposed amendments for the ordinance changes by the Health Department for the following amendments to section 7-10, compost center.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
No.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. DeLisio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
10 yeas, 1 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Sorry about that. That concludes the business this evening for Ordinance, Elections, and Legislative Matters Committee. And I'm looking forward to this year. I think that it was suggested by my committee members to bring the administration down when just like what happened with the speed humps this evening. So I think it's a good idea to really try to work towards having the open line of communication to kind of help with some of these issues that I think I had this last year with my committee. So I'm looking forward to doing that in the upcoming year. And I will have a committee meeting next appropriate time next week.
Thank you. Now, there is no new business. There is no old business at this time. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. A roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair, I believe.
Blair, I think. Yeah, Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. DeLisio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 10:25.
Hello, Virginia.
Good night.
Good to see you.
Good night.
Right.
Everyone.
Whew.